Welcome to our city council meeting. We're going to get started now. We'd like to excuse Councilman Christensen. He's out of town, so he will not be in attendance today. We're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Montgomery.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, as we bow our heads this day in this city council hearing and meeting, we are indeed grateful and thankful for the liberties of this land which Thou hast given us. We're thankful for the freedoms we enjoy and the opportunities to govern and to be able to discuss and learn and grow. We pray for a blessing of discernment with us this evening. Help us to understand those things which will be best for the community and best as we move forward. And may we have understanding and patience as we go through this meeting this evening. For these things we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Our first item on our agenda is number 3, and that's for public comments. I'd like to ask that you state your name, your address, your email address, and then try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. So anybody who would like to comment, please come up and do that.
Hi, I'm Chris Cope. I just have a really little thing. It's been addressed, I've addressed it in the past. We get our water bill that has the city's newsletter in it that it comes on the 7th, and it informs us of a public hearing that was held on the 4th. And I just wonder, can we get those a month ahead so that people have prior notification of those? Thank you.
No other comment?
Martin Farrell, I live at 2470 North, 750 West. Email address, martinfarrell@msn.com. Is that all the information you need? There's a few things that I'd like to address. Number one is the Ordinance 573, and I want to thank all of those that are involved in that have got it to this stage, and that's for the produce stand. And just a short comment on there is just recently, a couple of days ago, had a lady that stopped by, and I explained to her kind of what I had planned, and she said, well, that would be good. It might be an opportunity for her to bring her product. She says, then I can help my family out financially. So there's a few other things that way, but thank you there. The other thing I'd like to address is the Pioneer Elementary Fall Festival. I would oppose that, the reason being that we have 2 other schools in our district here, which is Orion and Majestic. And if we could support those schools is my thought on what we could do, even though we may have kids that go to the Pioneer Elementary. And I could even express my age is that I used to go to Pioneer myself. The other thing that I have is there's a discussion here on the City Complex Detention Basin, which I just pulled that up and hadn't got really any information on that. And so as far as the irrigation ditch on there, there's just a few things, and it says that there's a 15-inch irrigation pipe at the existing ditch, whether that'll be replaced or what the plan is there. And then if there's any construction on that irrigation ditch, as far as Western irrigation or the ditch, as far as I know, there's nothing been said there as far as any alterations on that. The other question is, where's the stormwater going to go? It's a detention basin, but if there's a pipe connected to it, then where does that stormwater go? I want to say close to 3 years ago, I believe in April, there was a letter sent to the city from Western Irrigation that says no more stormwater into the Western Irrigation Canal. And I know there's been some discussions on that and as far as stormwater, but I would ask the city council to table this until there's further information that can be addressed on this situation. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't do both of the things I wanted to address. Ordinance 573. I just wanted to also say thanks to all the people who've been involved in that and express thanks. Harrisville is known as a rural kind of town. We have a rural atmosphere. People know that, they like that. That's a part of the reason they come here. And I feel like that's going to help support that. It's going to help support the people who are in A1 zoning, which I am. And that's a helpful thing, and I really appreciate everything that's been done so far and would like to see that go. Thank you.
I guess I'll comment. My name is Shannon Rich. I'm at 242 East 700 North in Harrisville. My email is shannongummy9@gmail.com. I'm for the Fall Festival at Pioneer Elementary. I was kind of the front runner with that whole thing, getting it started, working with Jenny and with Brian together to get that put together. I don't know if you guys know this, but at Walmart they sell a Harrisville Monopoly. So it's like Harrisville's version of Monopoly. And on one of those squares says the Fall Festival. And with my family, I say I own that place because I put so much work and time into that. But so it's just a joke in our family that like, this is mine, I own this. With that, it started off small, like everybody, Brian can attest to it too, like that first time, and it was bitter cold when we did it, but we still had a good turnout and good support. And then the thing was that we were consecutive. We came back, more people came. We came back, more and more people came. It's just been better and better every single year. So I don't see why you would want to end something that brings the community together, gives a time for you as like public figures to be in the community, to show your face. Like even if you don't do a trunk or treat or whatever, just be there supporting. You don't have to buy tickets to support the 6th graders, but it's just a good community thing to have and to enjoy time together as a community. Trying to think of everything. I kind of looked at the school boundaries today and the Harrisville and the city boundaries, and Pioneer makes up most of Harrisville City's boundary. It's just that little northern part that feeds into Majestic. But like I said, we're happy. Like just come support everything. I will go if there's nothing going on in Harrisville. I'll go to other communities. Like I've done that several years, where I just go and go to Marriott Slaterville for their 4th of July stuff. I go to Plain City, Far West. Like if they're doing something, I'm gonna go. And I think if you guys just keep it coming, we'll have people still come, and it's just a fun family night. We don't need fireworks. It doesn't need to be that kind of a thing, but it's just, I think you've got it going, and it's going good, and it's just fun. I also had a memory come up on my Facebook page or whatever, and it was like a 5K that we did back when we did Heritage Days, and we did a midnight, not really midnight, but a nighttime one. My time is up, but if you want to engage community, add in like a 5K, simple, doesn't cost much, you just lay out the place and people will come to those kind of things, but just some ideas, thanks.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close the public comment. We'll go on to item number 4, consent items. Approval of the meeting minutes for July 28, 2026 and August 4, 2026, as presented. Any discussion?
I had made some recommended changes, some spelling and items which have been corrected. And so if there's not anything else, these weren't substantive things, just some spelling and that.
Okay,
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes subject to the revisions which Jack has now included on the agenda.
I'll second
so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I have one comment. I have also submitted, and Jack had agreed to make minor changes as well.
Can you say that? That would be a content change.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I did not clarify that before.
Oh, okay.
Will you
Okay.
please?
So the change that I was looking to make was, there was one spelling, but then the other one was in the section where Jill had given her presentation about the rate change. It had stated the original rate, and then the proposed rate, the new rate was not listed in there. It just said the new rate would, or she had stated that the county had recommended the same exact rate, but she had not, in the minutes, it did not reflect that she had stated the new rate. So I just want to make sure that new rate was included.
Okay, so we have that change. We want to do a new motion?
Yeah, I'd make a motion that with the amendments discussed that we approve the minutes with those amendments.
I'll still second it.
So have the motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're on to item number 5, business items. Discussion and possible action to adopt Ordinance 573, amendments to the Harrisville City Code 11.01.060, 11.08.020, and 11.10.021. We're going to have Sarah Wichern, if she's already up here.
All ready to go.
Go for it.
So we've had a few comments in our public comments about this ordinance. Essentially, we had the resident approach us and ask if we could expand what is allowed in our produce stands, specifically in our agricultural zones. We currently allow produce stands by a different title, but we allow them in all of our residential zones at a very reduced capacity, small size, only the produce grown on site. And we wanted to expand that for our A1 zone so that there are more opportunities where agriculture is a difficult prospect to be profitable in Harrisville City. We wanted to create less overhead for getting those items sold if they wanted to, and for different landowners to be able to join and have a produce stand together where it's a majority of the product would be sold or grown in Harrisville, and then have a produce stand that the residents could enjoy. I've listed some specifics here, and I'm happy to go through it kind of more thoroughly, but if you're familiar with it and you'd rather just ask questions, I'm happy to do whatever you feel comfortable with.
I'm somewhat familiar with that. Do you guys have any questions that you'd like addressed specifically? I know Greg had multiple questions. I read through that, and I read through your responses, so I don't know.
Well, probably, I guess as part of the discussion, part of that is just general format. When we talk about the ordinance, which one it is, there's actually in the definition, under our present definitions, there's actually a number for each definition. So it's 060, and if we're doing that alphabetically, this would be .250 based on the alphabet, which means that everything below it will have to be revised to be renumbered. I think that's just one thing that needs to be clarified, that my understanding generally when we have ordinances, we have specifically where it sits in the text. And that's why I think that numbering has to be looked at and revised unless we're looking at changing our whole numbering system for definitions, which I think would be good, but that's not what we're considering tonight.
It could be something to consider in addition to this, where it's semantics and it's not changing the content of the code. If it helps with the revision, just to eliminate the numbering and just go with an alphabetical listing, I think that would meet the intent of what we're doing here without changing the substance of the code itself. I think that's a great recommendation that you could add into your motion, because we are addressing the land use code and the definitions section.
I guess I want to just defer to legal as far as making revisions like that.
You can do that. You could approve it as is with the revisions to make it in order, or subject to making.
Yeah, something got in.
Are we shutting down our Zoom?
It's done.
Okay. Well, we can move on. Any other questions?
So the next question, the accessory consumable products is permitted by this title.
Yes.
Generally, the language should be something that a layperson could understand. And I have no clue what is accessory consumable products. Is that a hemp chewy? Is that what is an accessory consumable product?
So in your notes, you'll see I included a definition we could include. To me, accessory consumable products, it's accessory and it's consumable, so it's accessory to the other products that are being sold, and it's consumable. If we want to go into more detail, I've listed a possible definition, but it does really just refer to the actual words itself: a food or beverage product intended for human consumption, sold in conjunction with produce at a produce stand, incidental, subordinate to the sale of locally grown or produced agricultural products. And then it gives some examples, and also it does refer to meeting federal, state, and local requirements, but that is also already included in the verbiage for the produce stand. So whether you want to provide an extra definition in the definition section or not would be up to you as a council. I didn't see that necessary, but if you feel that's necessary, that's something you could propose.
I would just think that if there's some way to make it simpler, that the common person could understand what that is. For example, we understand they're doing a produce stand, and they're selling produce, and then they're selling items that come from the produce. You know, whether it's jams or jellies or salsa or whatever it is. Is there something else that is being looked at that would happen with this?
No, that's why the definition is what it is. It would be up to your discretion or the definition, and then it would be up to a interpretation of the definition after that. So when it comes to city code, some things are going to be, we'd like to make them as clear as possible, and we'd like to make the code as concise as possible. So it's up to you how robust you want that to be, how expanded you want it to be. Some things may not be, to me, someone else suggested the term in our planning meeting, or in our project meeting, suggested the term consumable, accessories to consumable products. That rang to me as being clear and concise, but if you feel that it isn't, that's something you could adjust. I mean, really, we're just trying to limit the amount of code that is necessary. But if it's necessary, we include it. If not, that's just up to you to decide.
Yeah, I think it might be better if you just say, you know, you've got your definition of what the produce stand is, and just saying, you know, say it sells the fruits, vegetables, and other agricultural products, and items such as jams, jellies, and made from these products, and just leave it something.
I personally wouldn't support that, but if that rings true to you as a council and that's what you want to do, I think accessory consumable products is more clear. Instead of providing examples, it provides a title that describes the examples, but that's for you as a council to determine.
So
my question that goes along with that a little bit is if you were talking about code enforcement, when we have ambiguity, what enforcement can be made? What would be enforceable as not an accessory consumable product if we don't give some sort of definition of what that might be?
So, I mean, as an example, we talk about, I think I said this in here, we talk about plant nurseries. We don't specifically outline what a plant nursery is. We can go into expanded definitions on every part of the code. Some of them, if someone comes to you with a product that no one is going to eat, then you know it's not a consumable product. But to me, it's fairly clear. It just depends on how much specificity you want. There's always going to be some sort of ambiguity and someone trying to press a particular point, I would say.
Well, I think though, when that happens, you just go with a common definition of the English language as the fallback. If there's a question of this or this, well, what's the common usage of the word? I don't know that you need to explain everything, but I think, as state law talks about it, does the reasonable person understand this?
And that's what I would agree with and why I propose accessory consumable product, because I think that's in the definition. If we say products such as and don't use the title consumable accessory products, then I think that leaves more ambiguity. Is this like that? Is this like that? But those three words, and if you can think of something to like for more specificity, but is it accessory to the use? Is it consumable? And I think that would cover most bases, but if you can think of something like to expand on, you absolutely could.
One comment regarding that is, and part of it may be, I don't mind the definition that you provided, but where this has to do with agricultural products type stand, because the accessory consumable products could also be welding wire, but it's really not connected to agricultural, if that makes sense, because that's a consumable item or something like that. So I don't have the terminology that I'm thinking about, but I mean, it could be
Rather than human consumption, specify rather than basically consumable.
Because really, I think the intent of it is to be able to provide things like baked goods, jams, jellies, as you defined there, and maybe you could consider or leave food and beverages without the term accessory consumable products.
Say food and beverages.
Yeah, but I mean,
I like that.
if you kind of spelled it out so that it tied directly to produce stands, not necessarily other consumable items. The world I live in, I consume drill bits, right?
Yes.
I don't eat them, but I consume them. So that might be something we may want to consider. So that's my thought.
It seems like we can choose between using a term that every layperson will understand or something that's very concise and has been more wordy and sort of restricts out from what other random people might decide they want to do. So I think that's our choice.
I think though the intent, from what it sounds like, is that we're intending for people to sell additional food or beverage products that tie in with it. It's not, and I think that it would make more sense to define it that way than it would be something that feels a little bit more ambiguous, like accessory consumable product. Only because I think that, like Mayor had brought up for an example, I mean, someone could say, well, this is an accessory to agriculture. I'm going to sell baling wire. I'm going to sell nuts and bolts. These are consumable products. And so food and beverage, it's pretty hard to fit nuts and bolts and things like that into that definition.
So if we just go with the definition that's here, it's a bit wordy, but if people have questions, they can always call and find out exactly.
And I don't think you need to have necessarily the such as kind of descriptions. I think, food or beverage products intended for human consumption could also be sold, right?
Yeah.
I would probably.
Yeah, you could take that part and put that in to replace the other wording, yes.
I would feel more comfortable.
I think
with
something
that.
like that is, you can understand what you're trying to say.
I agree.
So the next question I had is that in the proposal, it's to remove the commercial fruit and fruit production. And in my mind, I just see keeping that and then adding the produce stand, because there are those who are farming and they're selling their hay to another party. They're producing vegetables and fruit and they sell them directly to a market.
And it may be interpreted that it would prohibit that, so adding an additional line and keeping that one is a good idea to include in your proposal.
Okay. And then again, just another reference number to the 1110.020.2 to add to that. One of the things that talks about the setback for a temporary stand being from the road surface. And so the question I had was, are you talking about the asphalt edge, or are you talking about the right-of-way line? Because road surface would generally say just the asphalt edge, and so the fruit stand could be in the public right-of-way.
So this was a difficult one, and I think this would be a good topic of discussion. We didn't want to specify 15 feet. So the produce stand would have to be on their property just because you're not allowed to put it on someone else's property. But the right-of-ways in Harrisville City, especially on this agricultural land, can be in the middle of the street, and they can be 20 feet off the asphalt. So we use that terminology, edge of asphalt. The end game of what we're trying to create is to make sure we're not having stuff right on the street such that people are in danger of being able to see oncoming traffic either direction. So we could eliminate that and just keep the item that said at 1110.24, keep the sight distance clear, and just specify you can be in the front setback, but you have to have clear sight distance. And that would probably be complaint driven if someone's going in or out, or if we notice it and be like, hey, we got to move that back. So it is a little more vague than a specific distance. Now in the agricultural zones, 15 feet off of the asphalt or the front setback, whatever it ends up being, there's some room there. There's concerns that if we apply that to all the residential zones, they don't have enough front setback to put it in their front setback. Maybe 5 feet is reasonable, plus the added visibility requirement. Say, so 5 feet instead of 15 feet, and it needs to be clear for sight distance. That's an option. So that's where the 15 from edge of road came from, but there's definitely other ways we could address that.
So in what you're explaining to me then, what you'd be saying is we would allow it if we do have enough space and distance to be in the right-of-way as a temporary structure.
Not in the right-of-way, but it could be right up to the property line if the asphalt is far enough away from the property line. They'd never be allowed in the right-of-way, but we wouldn't want them, say the road's here and the property line's here, we wouldn't want them to have to go additional feet off that property line. That was the concern.
So would it be better if, kind of what you're talking about, if we say that for the temporary produce stand, they can be, there is no setback, rather than try to say road edge or something like that?
So we could say it needs to be set back enough to provide clear distance for entering and exiting that property and the neighboring property. We could make it smaller, something like 5 feet, so that even if they're 5 feet off of right-of-way, but it's smaller, so it's not so prohibitive, and still have the clear distance or the clear site requirements. Those two in combination, those are some options I was mulling over when I saw your comments.
And this would only apply to the temporary structures, right? If
Correct.
they're doing a permanent structure, that meet it's a 30-foot setback,
It would meet that,
or would it be 15 feet?
it would be that 11.920.4, which requires 30 feet.
For the A1 and the R20, and then it goes smaller for the other zones.
Yes, whatever's in that table for the permanent structures, correct.
Well, I think it makes sense to say that with that, you're revising it to say that for a temporary structure, it's a 5-foot setback from the right-of-way line.
Yeah, that's more
And the
clear.
permanent structure meets the setback of the zone,
Okay.
something like that. I think that would make more sense. And then be clear. See. Next one, the off-street parking. As I think about the fruit stands and that I've seen in the past that have been, maybe they're not, haven't been in Harrisville, they've been in Far West and others. Those temporary stands, I think, being able to just pull up to the curbside or the shoulder, rather than say you need to have a dedicated space, really is the idea that you get in and out and you're gone. And to say, okay, now you've got to do a parking area. And according to the ordinance, then that parking area has to be behind the setback, which would be 30 and an A1 and that. I don't know what you're gaining by saying, okay, temporary stall, I'm going to make you put in all this parking, which you only may use 2 months out of the year, but the rest of it will just sit there as a dirt patch. If there's a permanent stand that's all year round, I can see parking, but I think for a temporary stand, I really think you don't need a parking requirement because the shoulder is the adequate space. So just your thoughts on that.
Yes, so I actually, right outside my window at my office in South Ogden, there's a produce stand which is about 1,000 square feet. And they have more than 10 parking stalls, and nearly all of them are filled most of the time because of the size of that produce stand. So that's where I started kind of churning on this idea. It is usually fairly dense. It can be fairly dense. So when we're looking at expanding the uses in the agricultural zone, these are still residential zones, and our home occupation, it doesn't fall under home occupation, but when we're considering home occupations, we look at, is this going to change the nature of that neighborhood? And parking tends to be one of the largest complaints in our residential neighborhoods. So making sure that the addition of the produce stand doesn't change the nature of the neighborhood was something I was considering. Now for the front setback, so one part of our code does say our parking regulations in our code need some work, and we actually will have a proposal to you in the next month or two. We were working on those with the Planning Commission because we need to get them in line with state code, so we could clarify those more. So it is a little ambiguous of can it be in front, can it be in back? And I found a way, I've written it here on this, I believe, I'm trying to think where I put it in my comments, but make sure that specifically for produce stands, the parking can be in the front setback. And this would mean any small produce stand in anything up to the A1 zone isn't going to require more than one parking stall, and that can be in the driveway. So what it's saying to the residents is keep your driveway clear so that someone can park off street. And then for the A1 zone, that would be, they could use their front setback, and it just needs to be compacted gravel. We're not asking for a permanent structure, but that would be otherwise not usable. And so improving that condition, it needs to be improved even for temporary use, but it wouldn't be taking away from what they could otherwise do with the land, because they wouldn't be able to build there. So they could get their parking and not cut into their buildable land.
Because I guess I see this being applied in two different ways. One, there is no building on the property. And so within the agricultural zone, you're generally 100 to 200 feet of road frontage.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see let's go to additional things for parking where it's just, I'm in and out, I'm in and out. If you're more in areas where maybe the lot width is 60 feet or 70 feet of the typical residential zone, then maybe that makes sense. I just don't see it for large properties that may not have a building on them at all, but now let's put a parking lot off the shoulder.
The way I see it, there are a lot of the agricultural roads sometimes are very narrow, and sometimes there's a place to park on the side. Sometimes you'd be inhibiting the flow of traffic parking on the side. From what I've seen from how much the produce stand is used by my office, it concerns me to have that many cars on the street. And if there is some sort of an occupation that happens in the winter months, if we're selling pumpkins through November, December, and to me, it's best always to preserve the residential neighborhoods through parking. That's what I look at. And from a safety standpoint, people getting in and out on the street isn't ideal. It's something we've discussed with the applicant, and he was fine with that, so that's something else we considered, but that's just where I'm coming from as staff.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh, something else I addressed though is I had listed one parking stall for every 100 square feet, but we also proposed increasing the smallest size to 150 square feet. So we want to do that commensurately, one parking stall for every 150 square feet of produce stand. And you could set a different parking requirement if you'd like.
See, and I think it makes way more sense of talking about parking when you're talking about large stands. But somebody has a 10 by 10, you're talking one space, that'd be a large requirement for someone who's just setting up something temporarily if they don't have a space for them to.
So that would be their driveway. It would essentially just say keep the driveway clear. And there's no requirement to make people use those off-street parkings. It's just to make it available so that if we do have a nuisance issue or if there is an issue, then it can be pushed onto the property.
So are we building into this the potential that this will grow? Because as you sit here and have this discussion in my mind, when I stop, I'm not just buying tomatoes, I'm buying corn. I'm looking at this, I've got jams over here. My in and out, as you talked about, may take 15 or 20 minutes or a half an hour. How many other people are going to be doing the same thing? And then all of a sudden we have several cars there that need places to park. So I can see both sides of the logic. If it was an in and out, I'm buying tomatoes, it's fine. But as I've understood the impression, this is more than just tomatoes. It's several articles of produce, which I think people will come and buy what they need, but they're going to be there longer than what they would need. So once again, then you have a problem with parking.
But it would be different in a 10 by 10 versus something much larger. You're only going to have so much you can put in a 10 by 10
Well, I understand.
space.
Yeah,
And
I
so
understand that.
You're probably not going to take a half hour to walk a 10 by 10 space and like what you want.
Well, and also there's just this feeling that we can't use the public park on the side of the street as parking.
In a residential neighborhood that's meant to serve residentially, that's where for commercial enterprises like this, we do allow parking in front of the commercial business, but we have off-street parking requirements to prevent people from parking on the street. And in a residential neighborhood, the residents are expecting to have that free and available for their visitors or for someone else coming. So to have a semi-commercial or retail business coming into their neighborhood, it's just trying to consider the impact. That's it.
My thoughts on this is I think that I like how, if we covered it based off of the size of the temporary structure versus the permanent structure. I don't mind seeing them just have one space, and then if they park on the road, then they park on the road, but at least there's some requirement when you're trying to pass an ordinance that might cover not just one applicant, but multiple applicants
Right,
across the
right.
whole thing. We want to try to become hard to draft something that meets all of those requirements for everybody. I think the one comment you made to Greg regarding 150 square feet, I think that makes more sense than 100 square feet, just because, like you said, the 12 by 12 canopy is 144 square feet. So, but I still think it's a good idea to have at least one parking spot that's entailed there.
And allow that to be in the front setback. For the setback 30 feet from property line.
Yeah. Well, somewhere down the line, I mean.
The other thing is, if we have this in the requirement, that at least gets the owner thinking about where are people going to park in case there's issues with that, then they've thought it through somewhat.
So,
And one space doesn't seem prohibitive to me.
So where are we at then?
well, is there any other discussion? And if there's not a discussion, I mean, we have some items that we've talked about with regards to some potential changes to the way that the ordinance is written right now. And so we could entertain a motion if somebody would like to take that motion on. Some of the notes that I made was the accessory consumable products definition. I mean, for me, you can decide what you want to do, but that very first basically sentence, food or beverage product intended for human consumption that is sold in conjunction with produce at the produce stand and not necessarily use accessory consumable product.
Right.
And then on then the other thing was the right of way. I thought that was an important one. You know, if you do it off the right of way line, then you're taking up the idea of the whole easement side and doing 5 feet off of that. So that would be part of your work.
And then I do agree that we should keep the commercial crop and fruit production. We shouldn't be taking something away
Yes.
by granting something new.
So, but anyway, if you have more questions, we can do that, or somebody can entertain a motion.
Mayor, can I make one comment that I realized, it's gonna be quick. I noticed that we have separated temporary structures from canopies, and I think the code would be more streamlined if we just said permanent and temporary. So it's limited to 150 square feet. We don't care if it's a canopy or a cart or what it is.
Right.
So if you agree with that, to include in your motion to combine temporary structures with canopies, and I'll make sure that the code is organized such that that makes sense.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Well, let me take a shot at a motion. So, let's see. In regards to the proposed ordinance 573, which amends 1101-060 and 1108-020 and 1110-020, I would make a motion that we approve the proposed ordinance subject to the following revisions. First, in a manner to help streamline our code system, remove the numbering of each definition so that it's easy to insert new items alphabetically into that. So make that first as a change to the format of the definition section. Then, in terms of produce stand, that we revise the definition to to eliminate the wording accessory consumable products, but to add the wording in its place. Let's see. Include items such as baked goods, jams, jellies, or food or beverage product intended for human consumption that is sold in conjunction with the produce of the produce. Just use that wording to replace the accessory consumable products. Revision 3 is not eliminate the commercial crop and fruit production, but add the produce stand as a separate item with the same being permitted in the zones as noted in the ordinance of both items. 3 or 4, that the setback distance be revised, instead of saying the edge of road, to be 5 foot from the right-of-way line for a temporary stand. And then any permanent stand would meet the setbacks as defined for permanent structures. No, that's another one. And then, let's see, where is it that we need, when you talk about temporary, the temporary is just anything that is not permanently attached to the ground. You know, doesn't have a footing and foundation or things like that. So whether it be a tarp or whether it be a portable canopy or whatever that may be. The off-street parking on that revision, one stall be required for 150 square feet or multiples thereof, and that stall for a temporary structure can be in the front setback. And let's see. I think those are the revisions that we've discussed.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
It's a roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Okay. Councilperson Brawl,
Yes.
Councilman Wilhelmsen,
Yes.
Councilman Hadley,
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery.
Yes. Thank you for your effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is discussion and possible action to approve City Complex Detention Basin. Matt Robertson is going to present that, our city engineer.
All right, evening. So we received bids, and I guess, and this will go to help what Mr. Farrell mentioned earlier in the meeting. The intent of the project is to create to construct a regional detention basin on the city property over off of 750 West. The purposes being to detain any stormwater runoff from the new City Hall parking lot and associated roadway, as well as provide additional stormwater detention in the area for runoff that comes across the highway. It comes off of the highway and also comes from the Ben Lomond development on the other side of the highway. So the intent of the detention basin was to be a little more regional. You can see on the plans, the required volume for just the City Hall parking lot is just over 15,000 cubic feet. The design provides over 43,000 cubic feet. This has been a problem area over the last couple of years. A lot of it is from flows that come across the highway and empty onto this site. And it should help with the problems that we've been having with the irrigation ditch. Right now, a lot of that water that comes across the highway and even just is generated off the site ends up over there and does get into the irrigation ditch to the north of the property. So this would detain the water, slow the flow down, release it at a controlled rate. We wouldn't be touching the irrigation ditch that's already piped there, nor the one that goes over diagonally towards, I think, Wayne Barrow's property. The line item in the additive alternates, and there was a typo on the one that was sent out. It is 18-inch. There was an additive alternate to pipe in that ditch if they wanted to spend the money with 18-inch RCP. That was just an additive alternate. So we're not the main ditch, irrigation ditch that goes through the property that's piped right now. wouldn't be touched. The outlet from the detention basin would go underneath the irrigation ditch, the irrigation pipe, the existing 18-inch irrigation pipe. It'd go underneath that and tie into the storm drain out in 750 West. So it should help. The idea is that it's going to help not only for the new development, but for the existing problem that we have. A lot of water gets there and does flood out that ditch. There have been complaints from the neighboring properties to the north of too much water over there that overflows the banks. And I know Public Works has done a lot of work out there to try to mitigate that problem. But this should go a long way in helping that. So the 4 bids were received for the work from Blue Rock Enterprises, Northern Construction, Great Basin Development, and Montgomery Excavation. Blue Rock Enterprises was the low bid. They are currently on site. They're the subcontractor doing the utility and excavation work for R&O Construction and the city property, or the City Hall project. So they were the low bid. Their base bid was the $139,398 compared to Ordinance at $152, and then the other ones were higher. So in discussion with city staff, I think our recommendation would be to award that base bid amount of $139,398.92 to Blue Rock Enterprises. The additive alternates, one was to line the basin with fabric and rock. That got quite pricey. So in discussion with Public Works, we could maybe do that down the road, either by the Public Works crew or find another contractor that can do that for less money. In the budget, and Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we had budgeted $201,000 for the total project cost.
Yes.
Okay, so if you did the additive alternates, that would obviously go over that, the budgeted amount. So, yeah, any questions? I guess the other portion of this project would be adding a few catch basins to help with some localized ponding issues on the Public Works site. So that would they'd be adding some piping over there and tying into the storm drain on 750 West.
So Matt, I'm a little slow. Could you go back to the drawing of the pond itself?
Yeah.
And as you were talking about things, did you just point
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
Yep. So up here you have, this is that northeast corner of the city property.
Okay.
There's a pipe that picks up flows from the golf course development, comes underneath. They have their large detention basin there, but their released amount, their detained flow, comes across and comes onto the city property right here in the ditch.
So does that come across someone else's property too before it hits us?
It does. They have an easement. There's an easement for that.
Okay.
So they have a pipe that comes across the highway. It's piped down along the highway and then through the HHI property, but they have an easement. And then it empties onto the ditch on the city property. We would improve this ditch, so this would still be an open ditch from there down to here, and then it would enter into the detention basin.
So when you say ditch, is it a drainage ditch or is it an irrigation?
Drainage ditch.
Okay.
Yeah. The irrigation ditch that's been piped across the property is down. It's down here. It hits this control box where it heads up to the north, or it can
down
turn
to
around and
Barrows.
go over to Lanes. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the flow from the golf course development would enter the basin right here. So here's our detention basin. The flow from the City Hall parking lot would come over to our structure, which would then, there'd be an orifice plate in that where it would back up. So the higher flows would back up into our basin and then release a detained amount. Down into this pipe that goes underneath the 18-inch irrigation and comes out to the storm drain on 750.
So it would not go into the ditch at all?
Right, the
Yeah.
only thing would be is that if it backed up completely, filled up completely, then it would spill over down into the ditch on this side. It's gonna just be graded in as a low spot. But we hopefully, like I said, we're, at least for the flow required, or the volume required just for the city property, we're 3 times that amount. To hopefully hold more and not impact the irrigation ditch. Because we don't want the problem that the original plan, and we have had this discussions over the last year or two with Western Irrigation. The original was, okay, we'd have to detain it and it'd have to go back into that ditch, but they don't like that, we don't like that. We'd rather we were able to design a way where it gets underneath the irrigation ditch and goes out to 750 instead of going back through that ditch.
Now, is there any stormwater line in 750?
Well, it's a stormwater line that goes, so it runs up to a box that the irrigation ditch has the ability to turn their tailwater back into it and send it back down to the main canal down by the tracks, back through the old greenhouse property.
So it does
So it goes, yeah.
into an irrigation then, huh?
Yeah, I mean, everything north of, and we're, you know, this is a constant battle that we're working with, but everything kind of north of the canal eventually gets back into the canal.
So there's the,
So that storm drain pipe, the storm drain pipe that the city put in 10 or 15 years ago, or so, no, maybe probably longer than that. They put in the storm drain pipe through the old Frank Johnson property out to 750 West, and then up the road, and then it's been extended one more time to help with irrigation tailwater. About 7 or 8 years ago, it was extended to help with this irrigation ditch, so that they had somewhere to send tailwater instead of flooding other fields.
and you said the size of this surface detention pond is how big?
The size?
Yeah, the square footage of the detention pond.
No, square footage, sorry, I don't have that. It's about 3 feet deep at the bottom. So it's about, probably, but then it goes up a little, it's probably about a half acre.
About a half acre
size-wise.
size.
I mean, cubic feet wise, so it's almost an acre foot.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I just wanted the size of land it's taking.
Yeah.
And based on what you're talking about, is that the best location for it? The reason I ask is, you know, one of the thoughts early on is when this property was acquired, that this was all a park,
Yeah.
all be parkland. And now we've built buildings on it. This comes in, so that takes it out of being a park also.
Yeah. It's gone through a few renditions, as you know.
Yeah.
At one point, this area was going to be our irrigation pond. At one point, we were going to be taking water out of the irrigation ditch and storing it there and having a pump station to provide pressurized secondary water for the city complex. But now that we have a Pine View connection from the east side of the highway, we no longer need that as an irrigation pond, but we do need it as a detention pond.
And like you said, though, it's going from a detention pond that the public facility building needs to
Right.
a larger multi-land use.
And that's, yeah, and the intent is just that there is a lot of, you know, there's been problems over the years with the flow that comes over here and gets into that ditch. And so we'd like to be able to do, I think, more, like the city would like to do more to help with that, to be able to hold more water back and not overwhelm either the main canal or the ditches in the area. So I do see this, and we can, you know, review this. You know, we talked about this as Western, we can go over it some more, but the hope is that this would help with the stormwater situation.
So how was the volume and the size decided upon?
So
Forward-looking, or
well, the original size was calculated based on the runoff from the city hall site, and then the size that we came to or ended up on was basically how large can we get it and make the grades still work, because they did want extra
so it's
capacity.
basically as big as it can be.
Yeah, right.
But we don't
We couldn't stretch it too
necessarily
much further.
need that much volume currently, but we expect to need more than that required volume, because that required volume is based on the current problem, not necessarily.
The required volume is just based off of like the city hall parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
But this is providing a little extra or capacity for what's coming across the highway, and then any future, if there's any future development of the city's property, that would also provide extra capacity for that.
And do we expect that to be enough?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about I would expect so. I mean, if you think about the parking lot and the road for the city hall, and then if you ended up with some other facility up in that, you know, to the east of that, I would think that would be similarly sized as far as the parking lot. So I feel comfortable that we have enough capacity there. The other thing to consider, in which I would rather not, push it off another month, is that the City Hall construction, they're going to be pouring curb and gutter later this week. They'll be putting asphalt down in a month or so. And if we don't have anywhere for that water to go, then it probably would end up in the irrigation ditches that we don't want. So we'd like to get this time so we can construct this and have somewhere for the water to go once that parking lot's installed. Which should be by October.
You said that they're already on the construction site. Does that mean, sorry, I'm new to this.
Oh, you're good.
Does that mean they've been doing other work for us this particular?
They're a subcontractor to R&O Construction.
Okay, so
the
they've been
general.
there.
So they have equipment on the site, which is why it doesn't surprise me they were the low bidder. Their
Right.
mobilization cost is quite a bit lower than the other contractors because they have equipment there.
That
Their
also
contract
means-
would be, they would be doing this work for the city, not for R&O.
And that also means time could be of the essence, because if they pack up and leave,
Yeah,
and then we
right.
ask them to get back.
Right, exactly.
So, you mentioned this eventually dumps into the canal. Does that still create the problem as far as western irrigation?
Well, in my opinion, it helps because we can hold more of the water back.
Well, I understand.
The one issue with western irrigation that we're constantly trying to deal with is, our stormwater, North Ogden stormwater, all the stormwater kind of north of the canal that goes into either 6 Mile Creek or goes into a lot of these spots north of the canal eventually end up back in the canal. So, and it's historically been like that. I mean, 6 Mile was tied into the canal when it was built in the 1800s. And as development goes in, the idea with any stormwater, and I know it's not always the case, you end up with eventually more volume, but the idea is that you're trying to mimic the pre-development hydrology as far as the flow rate that goes out. So you're saying that this, and I admit it's not perfect science, but you're trying to say, okay, this was a golf course before, this was grass or a field before, and it ran off and eventually got into this creek at this rate. Well, development goes in, now it's going a lot quicker, right, because of the roads and everything. So that's why you put in the detention to slow it down, to try to mimic what it was like before. Admittedly, you get more volume because it eventually gets out where instead of getting into the ground. But that's how stormwater design works.
But the other part of it will be collecting pollutants.
Yeah. And the
You don't want,
detention-
as you irrigate a field, you don't want the road pollutants into your
Yeah.
field, so
Yeah, and you get.
that's why it's
Right,
separated.
in some fields and grass things you get, or a golf course across the street, you get fertilizers and stuff
Yeah.
into the runoff, which are obviously bad as well. The nice thing about this is a detention basin, at least the stuff, especially the stuff coming across from the golf course that enters in on the east side, it opens up and it's working its way across the whole basin, and those pollutants are getting kind of hopefully removed a little bit as it moves across the ground.
Both of them.
You know, I just two more questions. One is, so the funding of this project, where's the funding coming for this? Because I guess it wasn't included in
Right.
this scale into the building itself.
This is under the public works roads for stormwater impact fees, correct?
It's not in the roads, it's in the stormwater fund impact.
Thank you.
fees.
Stormwater fund impact fees.
Okay. And the second, and I know this comment is coming late in the game, but as you look at what potentially could be land uses that could happen on still the city property, the shape of this thing really makes it an odd duck to now try to do something around to create something aesthetic.
Well, what you could
I
do,
know-
honestly, in the future, you could incorporate it into a park, right? Like, if there's a lot of parks out there, obviously, we have a huge one that doubles as a detention basin. So.
And look at all the
if-
stuff we've taken out of it because it's a
Because
detention
it's a
basin, now we
detention
can't
basin.
use it.
Yeah. But I'm saying in the future, if you wanted to incorporate it into a park area, then you could potentially have a grass area there, but.
Yeah.
The
Is there
other-
a possibility, I know it's too late, most likely, but I would just see something like this being worked out to be more informal shape, that it could become a wetland area. You know, that would filter in the way you design the shape of it, and that it just seems like a natural indent. And, yeah, it might take a little bit more area, but it might be
I think
circuitous.
with wetland basins or wetland areas, I believe, and I'm not an expert in it, but I believe you need a constant flow, like more of a constant water source to keep whatever vegetation or wetland resources alive. And with a stormwater basin, it's infrequent, so we can go a couple months without seeing any water in there, or more.
Just a couple.
It might rain tonight.
Well, we do have detention basins that have cattails and that wrong.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, and the other thing, to your point, and I didn't know if you were gonna go here, but the other thing we deal with in Harrisville is it's hard to do like underground detention.
Right.
Because in some developments, you know, they put it underground so you can use more of the property, but we have such a high water table that that's difficult to do.
Yeah, no, I wasn't gonna go that way. But I just wish this shape could be, it's just kind of be more natural shape rather than that
Just
engineered, you know, an impact crater that we put in the area to try now work around.
Us engineers, we like our boxes. I get accused of that too much.
I have a question about the additive alternates. So you implied earlier that we could potentially do it at a later date, and you also seem to imply that it won't necessarily cost more.
Well, in discussion a little bit with Brian at Public Works, is they mentioned that they could look into self-performing some of that work. And they believe they can do that for
I'm just
less.
thinking if they're already out there and they've already
Yeah.
given us, then they might be giving us more of a discount, but
Right.
it doesn't sound like that's what you guys.
Well, it's a good consideration. It would just, right, you have to amend the budget to cover that amount. The other thing you could do to get it closer to the budget is the piping of that ditch was put in there just as an option so that the city property was a little more usable. You could drive over it or use that. Because right now, that ditch is kind of cut
That was my other
diagonally.
question, is what would be the benefit of covering that where it's not irrigation, it's just.
Yeah, it'd be, if the city needed to use it for either expansion of the public works yard or storage or anything else, whatever happens there. If that ever does get developed, it'll eventually need to be piped. But, one thing, I guess, even if you look at that, if you took that out, shouldn't do math in front of everybody, but if you took out the 32,687 and just did the basin with the rock at 74, then you're a lot closer. Then you're only 10 grand or so over the budget amount.
Yeah, so what I was researching with the geofabric is that it tends to make what's beneath it last longer, so it can be an investment in longevity of whatever's below. Does that seem like it applies in this case?
Yeah, it also helps, I mean, a big reason too is just to help with the weeds coming through. And it's a stabilizing, I mean, it can kind of be stabilizing too, so that all the dirt or clay or fines or whatever aren't pushing up in between those rocks. So you get a cleaner basin.
But if we don't cover it with rock, then we're just looking at dirt.
We need to look at our options. You could do some native seeding. I mean, we could want to do something. You could do like a native seed or like hydro seed over it, but we're not planning on running irrigation over there right now. So it would need to be something that wouldn't need, a sprinkler system right now. In the future, as this develops, it could potentially change.
But the extent of this bid, we'll just leave it as dirt.
Right, the contractor would leave it,
So not much to protect, in other words.
So we could, it's a good point. So we could go, and we could go back and ask for pricing to seed it and do that as a change order on the project.
I'm just not getting a sense that those additive alternates are particularly urgent at this moment.
Right.
So if I could just summarize then, the alternates, that should have been 18-inch rather than 15-inch.
Yeah, it was bid as 18. It was just
Okay.
carried over from an old estimate when the bid tabulation. But the contractors bid, they bid a 18-inch.
That this pond is being paid for by the storm impact fees.
Yeah, there you go. That's what they bid, was 18.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good. It was us who sent over that drawing first. Sorry.
And this is being paid for by the storm impact fees. And that this is a regional pond rather than just for this project.
Right. Which makes it impact eligible.
Right. And then the last one is that as you take the release from the storm detention, it is in a separate pipe, not going through the ditch pipe
Right.
until we go across the street, and then that's the question of contention of, is that a ditch or is that a canal or?
Well,
is
the city owns the storm drain. They installed and maintain and own the storm drain from, the outfall is down just on the east side of the tracks, right? Marv? Just on the east side of the
it's
tracks.
it's on the east side of where,
Yeah, the north side of the canal, east side of the tracks, through the old greenhouse property,
Okay.
which was installed 20 years ago or whatever. So it comes, so the city has that storm drain all the way out to 750 west and then runs up north of 750.
That's irrigation. It's irrigation.
And one thing to consider on the rocks and the geofabric and all that stuff is, depending on how wet that pond becomes, you know, that can really have an impact on the
Maintenance.
building or the public works department. I mean, we're dealing with over at Dixon Creek, we're dealing with trees that have been growing in what was a detention basin. Have to go in and cut all the trees out or grind them up or what have you. And, so it's something to consider, you know, whatever we're gonna do with that detention basin. You know, do we spend the money now to put rocks and geofabric down, or do we let it go? And then how can we plan on making sure we're gonna maintain the bottom of it? You know, if you look at Ashland Cove, that pond, I think it has rocks in it.
Some.
And it's all covered with cattails right
Yeah.
now. So, something to consider there.
So if the city were to do that, right, I guess the question would probably come down to the when you see that happening, and, because it sounds like it's something that's needed.
Yeah, does it have to be done? Does it have to be done now? No. I think from a maintenance standpoint, I think the mayor's right on. I would like to make a push to get this done while they have their equipment there, whether that means amending the budget later to make sure it happens now. It does become, difficult to schedule that, in my opinion, that big of a project with the equipment that we have. Would take us quite a while to do that, move all that rock in and stuff. So it doesn't have to be done right now, no, but my push would be, man, the sooner the better, because once it starts to get away from us, to your point, it's that much harder to bring it back. And also you have two brand new buildings, two brand new facilities, and now to have an unfinished retention pond next to it for who knows how long. Yes, we can prioritize that for the spring, but again, to your point, what does that look like for water and how wet that is? And the accessibility to get down into the bottom of it. Right.
Well, I can't help but notice that particular item is wildly disparate.
All over the place, yeah.
And so I'm wondering if that is because they're taking into account the number above. Saying, well, if we're bidding low on all these, then we need to bid higher on
Sure.
that so we don't lose money
Yeah.
or something. I don't know. It's
I don't
hard
know
to see
either.
103,000 versus 46,000. I mean,
I know.
is there any way that we could potentially just get a bid for that one item? I mean, I don't know who from, maybe these same ones or maybe someone else, and just see if it's a standalone item, what does that cost look like?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would preclude us from doing that. they would need to, this contractor would finish this scope and then the next
Yeah.
contractor would come.
It's
to
just
that.
really hard for me to say yes to $75,000.
Yeah,
There's 40
understood.
over here.
Right. Yeah.
I think there comes a point in time you've got to assess what this is going to do, and you won't know until you build it. I mean, the bottom line is, we're asking how much runoff's going to be coming down through. Well, we're in a drought,
Yeah.
and so, it'll be dirt, or there will be cattails. But once again,
Yeah.
we don't know.
For a couple of years, then who knows?
And who knows? So I think assessing what needs to be done with it as soon as possible makes sense.
Just an FYI, if we were to consider the geographic or the geofabric and rock along with the Blue Rock Enterprise bid, the total would be $213,546.32. So you have the number.
Later in the meeting today, if we need to amend the budget from the 201,000 to the higher number, we can do that when we approve the budget later on.
What do you need?
I need a motion.
Well, I don't know if this can be included in a motion, but I would like, if I were to motion, I would say let's approve just the basic bid up above with Blue Rock Enterprises with a follow-up to find out if we can get bids just for the geofabric and rock. And look at that at a later meeting.
I believe that's a
Is that
fair
a
motion.
motion?
I would like to make that a motion. How do I do that?
I'll second.
Okay.
Just say it? Okay.
So we have a motion by Councilwoman Rawl. We have a second by Montgomery. Okay. And this is a roll call. So we'll have Councilman Hadley,
Say yes.
Councilman Wilhelmsen,
Yes?
Councilwoman Rawl,
Yes.
and Councilman Montgomery.
Yes.
That passes. Thank you.
Okay.
Next item on our agenda is a discussion of possible action to adopt resolution 26-22 property tax rate adoption. Jill, I don't know if you want to start, or we have our
Well,
from last week.
we had the presentation last week. The only thing I would let you guys know is, looking through everything, I would propose that we go with the original rate that the county gave us in June. Other than that, which would do away with that 35,000 additional. That's up to you guys, whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, discussion,
So,
action.
just so I can understand, so that would basically be denying what was presented to us as a truth and taxation item. So deny that and staying with the present tax rate.
So it would be accepting the original rate that the county gave us in June. So however you guys want to do that, you guys have to physically state what rate you want in order for it to
Okay.
So what was the rate in
whatever.
June?
The rate that they gave me in June was .001534.
So I'll make a motion then that we,
And before we make a motion, I am concerned that sidewalk repairs need to happen, given what was shown us. So my question is, can we, after we adopt the resolution to keep the same rate, can we then go back, as we're looking at the budget, which is the next item, and specify we would like to change that budget tonight to make sure that sidewalk repairs are included and not coming from somewhere else besides the
Yes.
tax stickers? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
so I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 26-22 with the rate of .005134 as the property tax rate.
1.5.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
1534. That's a little dyslexic. Let me restart that motion just for clarification. That would have been terrible. Well, that's a little dyslexic, sorry. So I'd like to propose that we adopt resolution 26-22 property tax rate with 0.001534 as the effective tax rate.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
I will second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, this is a roll call as well. So we're going to start out with Councilman Montgomery,
Yes.
Councilman Wilhelmsen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Paul,
Yes.
and Councilman Hadley.
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 26-23, resolution adopting the fiscal year 2027 final budget for Harrisville City, Harrisville Community Reinvestment Agency, and the 4 Mile Special Service District. Jill?
This is to go over if there's anything that you want to discuss and possibly, depending on where. If we've already expended, because we did approve the interim, we can't change what we've already spent, but we can change the things that we have not. One request that I would ask whoever makes the motion of whatever we're doing, that we omit the truth in taxation from the original budget. So, because we didn't adopt that. If you guys could do that for me, please.
So is that on the general fund revenue, is that the
The
1031,
115, yes.
Yeah. So that was added for truth and taxation?
Yes, because
Okay.
that had to be
So that'd be
separated.
eliminated out, okay.
And then we will change the expenditure item to 1063. I don't have these memorized all the time. 1063, 435 to omit that 35,000.
Okay. So I do have a couple questions, and I know we've gone over this a few times, but I just want to get clarification. So on the general fund, so Fund 10 revenues, where we have included now the tax in the 2026, 2027, that is now including what the county has said, this is what our property tax assessment would be. That number, that 3 million, so it's property tax, other taxes lumped
The
into
other
that.
taxes, yes, that will actually, I will change that to show the new growth now that we've got the numbers from the county. So we can change that amount as well.
So that amount would be changed up or down?
The new growth will actually bring it up higher.
Okay.
It will go above the 35,000 anyway. So that one line will be omitted, and the line previous, which is the 1031,110, will increase.
Okay. Then on, just a question to help me understand. I know on the administration, the employee engagement doubled for this year from 2,500 to 5,000.
Yes.
And why was the doubling?
So a portion of that was on the, originally under city, or the council. Mayor and council, sorry, I don't have my old budget, I have the proposed. Under entertainment and food, so we decreased that amount, put it under administration because it is administration over the whole employee group. We provide little birthdays, treat, they're not big, we don't spend much on those. And then for an anniversary, I get them a little cup with some treats. And then we try and, what am I thinking?
We do a monthly staff
That's it.
luncheon for
Sorry.
the employees, and we we don't cater that luncheon. The department heads, we will make those luncheons for the employees, but
So it's just for the
an
supplies.
active engagement with our employees to encourage them.
And then that's separate from Public Works also doing such an activity for $2,700. So what's that, they're doing the same thing. They're doing 2,700. Well, and then you're doing this at 7,000? Or 5,000?
Yeah, that's our,
Yeah, I'm gonna
Public Works is $2,750. And I'm not against employee engagement, I think it's wonderful, I think it's needed, necessary, important. It just seems like a big jump. That's what we're, and potentially that much is not needed. And maybe you just wanna make sure it's there in case, but these are citizens' hard-earned tax dollars, and I just wanna make sure that we're using what we need, and that's all. So I have the same question. Would we be okay with reducing employee engagement to 1,500 for administration and 1,500 for public works? Or do we see a problem with that?
We'll make whatever you want work.
Do you feel it would be enough to accomplish your goal?
So, not based on what we've done in the past, but we're happy to do whatever we're told. $1,100 of the Public Works Special Department expenditures goes for up to $100 gift card for Christmas or a Christmas gift. And then the remaining $1,650, for example, we have 2 part-time seasonal staff members right now. We just had a barbecue today. This is their last week. And so we had a barbecue with 9, 10, 11 staff members today to say thank you for their work and acknowledge them a little bit for the work they've done. Lots of times after large events, we'll go to breakfast the next morning and talk about the event, debrief, run through ideas of what we can do better next year. That's what that money is. That's what we use that money for. So if it's reduced, we'll absolutely make it work. We can round table without breakfast. It's just an employee benefit, if you will.
And the same with the administration one. We average upwards of 30 employees monthly. If we do that, we're spending, by cooking ourselves, we're spending about $150 per luncheon. And then we spend about $3 for a birthday gift per employee. And I would say less than $10 for their annual certificate for their years of service.
I'd say more like $5.
But we will do whatever the council determines is an appropriate amount.
I would say if you're looking at a reduction on mine, I would ask for the $1,650 to remain, and would be happy to do away with $1,100 worth of a Christmas gift from the city or the department. I think the staff engagement is much more important if we're going to cut something.
Can I make a comment here? I understand where you're coming from, Annette, but at the same time, you've asked these people here to try to take care of the needs of our city and also improve our employees. And here's an opportunity for them to give them thanks. I think they're wise in what they're doing, and they're being very frugal with the money that they're trying to spend. I understand it's hard paid tax money, but what I see happening is we're trying every which way to cut the cost down to minimum. And these people here are working hard to try to do it. Sure, we take the money away, they'll do it without. But I think it makes it just that much more difficult to keep PR going among staff members that they hire. So I'm all right with what it is. I think you're wisely doing what you need to do with the money, even though it's improved. Especially when you're looking at 30 employees. How many do you have, Brian?
11 right now currently with 2 part-time
I can
staff.
see what the balance would be. So I understand both sides, but I think these people here are working very hard at trying to use the money in the best way that they possibly can.
Can I make one more, guys? Because I know you guys are jumping around. If I'm gonna make notes to change these, can you guys tell me what one you're referring to?
We're just talking right now, so.
Okay, but I'm gonna have to write them down.
Maintenance, employee engagement, do you need more than that?
Even the last 3 numbers, if you just tell me what department and the last 3, I can easily get it fast. because I'm trying to keep up with you guys.
1061,855.
Okay.
The other question I had, and this was asked to me, so I'm just going to ask it. Does the city give Christmas bonuses out, and if so, where does that come from?
Yes, it does, and I'd have to look, because I don't remember off the top of my head, but it comes out of the salaries. It's budgeted right in the salaries if that's.
So it is just a salary cost.
Mhm.
Typically, how much is,
If I remember right, the last one, just because I did payroll, I've got numbers all over, I want to say it was 400 a person.
They varied over the years between 350 to 500.
I think. I can get back to you.
I've heard that, but I didn't know what was
Specific.
anywhere in the budget, so I was just wondering,
It's included in their salary.
just in salary.
I know if they're full-time, it was a certain amount, and if it's part-time, it's less. That I know and I can remember that part. Sorry, I just sit and look at numbers all night.
So Jill, if we were making the motion, I want to make sure I understand, we'd need to omit the 1031-115, the 1063-435, and is that correct?
Just that we want to remove the 35,000 on the expenditure of the 1063,435.
Okay.
That's it.
And then do we need to do something to where it will put that amount somewhere else so that it's covered? Because we, meaning the $35,000 for sidewalks, that it's going to be covered under another.
If you want to put more money in there, but it's not from the truth and taxation, that's fine.
No, more money. I'm talking about we're just taking where $35,000 is going to show and it's going to go into another bucket.
If we take it off, we don't put it anywhere else, because that was set for that truth and taxation. Does that make sense?
Sure. That's
It's a
fine.
lot of numbers all over the place, I'll be honest. But once we take that off, because we didn't do that truth and taxation, it's omitted, it's gone.
But there's still funding to do the sidewalk project.
Yes,
Right,
if you want
somewhere
to
down.
add more money for that sidewalk, whether it's the project fund or on the sidewalk expenditure line, we can do that.
Which would be $25,000 without the tax increase. There would be $25,000 in there currently.
Yeah, without the tax increase, there is $25,000 sitting in there for that. So if you want to increase that, we can put that. Or we can put it in the project fund. We just have to be specific that it's going to be for sidewalks.
Now, I thought we had talked about a month or two ago, the savings from snowplow and that, and putting that into an increase in the sidewalks.
So what we talked about is anything outside of or higher than the 35,000, we'd either put it towards the project fund and allocate it for specifically that sidewalk. It's not necessarily just plowing, it's
Salt, all
anything,
that, everything.
anything that's not used that is more than what the 35,000 or the 35% that we are allowed to be put in that project.
And we still don't know what that number is then.
I'm in the midst of year end. I will be honest, I'm not quite there yet.
But that is something we could come back as a budget opening and do that at that point.
You actually allocated that with the final budget that we did in
I
June.
thought we did something.
We did.
Okay.
And so that's what you guys decided, so I'll be able to tell you an actual number once, because we want to make sure we go through the audit, make sure all my numbers are right, and then we can tell you exactly how much is in there.
So that wouldn't require an action tonight on that?
No.
Okay.
No, that's from the previous year.
From tonight, you have $25,000 in that line item unless you make an adjustment. when we complete the audit, we have 2 opportunities through the next fiscal year to make budget amendments, open the current budget. You can allocate that money after we know what that total number is. We're still wrapping up revenues that come in a couple months later before we finalize them.
I think I'm comfortable waiting until we're ready to do that. So I think I'd like to make,
I
have a few
have
more
one question.
questions.
So, I mean, I'm learning as a mayor, but
So are we.
the mayors all get together, Beaver County mayors get together every month. I don't know when my turn is, so am I responsible as the mayor to pay that out of my own pocket?
Nope, we have a wonderful expenditure that says travel training or entertainment food. So things like that. I mean, you guys aren't going out all the time, but that's what it's there for. You can pay for it and we can reimburse you because you are representing the city, and that's
And
where
we don't
that
go
part
out
goes
to
in.
like South Ogden, they go to the country club, but I'm not planning on going to the country club. But I mean, normally we go to Jeremiah's, and it's pretty low key, but I can pay for it if I have to, but
No, that's what that's there for.
Along those lines, I think if we're asking other departments to sacrifice, then I'm not sure we need 5,000 for travel and training for mayor and council. We do pay that subscription for the UCLT. League of Cities and Towns. And there are so many trainings on their website that we can access from our homes. And I don't know that we've done that yet. Maybe everyone has. I'm late to the game here, but if we are accessing that and that's all used up, then maybe we go to a conference, send a representative. I don't know that we all need to go to St. George on the taxpayer dime.
you know, I've been down there and I can tell you there's some benefits in being there in person versus on Zoom. And then they have one in Salt Lake coming up in October. But I've actually been to the initial training that I went to when I was first elected. I think that was in December. And I found it quite valuable to go. And then in addition to that, not only do you, besides the training, there's quite frankly very valuable relationship building that you do. And it's not that I'm out playing golf with anybody. I went to, how many hours of meetings did we go to? Quite a few.
Down in St. George.
Yeah, so it was probably
2 days worth.
at least 8 to 9 hours. I'm down and we were in the rooms being trained off of different people, and it wasn't, we weren't doing a lot of activities. I didn't do any activities actually outside of the training, but I found it very valuable. And yet, when you think of $5,000 to cover potentially all of you and then planning commissioners in addition to that, it can, I'd hate to see you do away with the budget and just only be restricted to that, because I think you're going to be missing out on some stuff.
I understand there would be some missing out going on. I just look at our budget and I look at our $12 million in debt, and I just think, how much do we put on the taxpayers? Where's the amount that they're getting out of this? And is it in this particular moment of our city, is it?
so the good news about anything that's in the budget is if later on we're finding that there's money that's left over in the account, that's where these reallocations can happen. And, and so any money that's not used can be used to, if it's not a protected dollar amount, it can be used to pay off certain things. And, I think I'm not saying this in a critical way, but I think we're not increasing taxes. There's nothing that's that way. Everything is being covered with with what's current. I don't think we can change the tax rate the other way around without a public hearing process either, correct? You know, and so we're
Right.
beyond the point of
this year.
of this year of making any decisions that way. And my opinion is that we just need to move forward and approve the budget and get on.
So you were starting to entertain a
I just
motion?
have one quick other question. So Jill, on general fund contributions, so 1090, 100. So I noticed that it says increase in fund balance and it's just 000 all the way along. So 1090, 100.
I'm going to it. All right, so increase the fund balance. It's 0 right now, because we don't know what we would put in the fund balance.
So by adopting
end of
this,
the year.
this is not limiting
No.
what will happen.
So this is the budget for the year. We are able to do 2 amendments per budget. We typically only have to do 1, and that's usually in June, because we try to be really good with our budget, you know, and things like that. That's when we'll do the amendment to say, okay, this is how much we're anticipating going into the fund balance. And that's when you'll see that amount. Would be in June, because then we would know how much we can put back in there, or whatever life throws at Harrisville City, I guess.
And we don't know yet what this year's will be until you get the
Yep.
Okay. Okay, those are all the questions I have.
My concern, and I hear what you're saying about, well, we don't have to use it, but my concern is that if all of this is put into a budget and then we just have this massive number, at what point, and maybe you can tell me specifically what point, we sit down and we say, we're just going to get the budget to what we need and that's all.
So that process starts clear in January, when we start putting together the budget. At this point, and we have, because it's a balanced budget, every dollar has to be tied to an account somewhere.
Right.
And so you can't have, this is an unassigned amount.
Yes.
So,
I understand.
so if we don't have $5,000 in that, it's gonna be somewhere else.
Right.
But that $5,000 isn't gonna go into, it's not gonna be taken away. It's gotta be accounted for in an expenditure account. And so having an expenditure account for the $5,000, if it's not used for the training, that's fine. It's just, that's where it's at and categorized. And then if we see that it's not being utilized and it needs to be used somewhere else, when we do the amendments, we can assign it to wherever it needs to be. Doesn't,
Such as sidewalks, potentially. So if we're sitting here looking at pictures of sidewalks, and these are a safety hazard for our residents, and the next week we come back and say, but we need to all go to St. George. That, to me, that doesn't look right for our residents. It doesn't look like we're trying to have them trust us with their dollars. If we're just setting it aside for something, we don't even know if we need this, or maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't. But yet our sidewalks are in disrepair. So that's what I'm looking at, and I'm not saying you have anything to do with that. I'm just saying as how it looks to our citizens. How are we taking care of their tax dollars in a way that makes it seem like we're taking it seriously?
so let me
That dollar
understand.
is coming from them.
So let me just understand what you're saying with that, because are you saying that, that it's that having a trained planning commission or a trained council, any of those people, it's not as important as sidewalks, or what are you trying to say with that?
If we say, here is what we need to become well-trained, and this is how we justify it, I can get behind that. But what we're saying is, we have this one option for training. We found value in it last year. We want to leave the option open for all of us to go. We maybe haven't taken advantage of other resources that we have available to us already that are free or come with our subscription that we pay, which is another $5,000 a year, or $5,500. That seems to have like a cavalier attitude towards, oh, but we also need to potentially raise taxes for sidewalks because that's not getting done. We should have done that years ago.
So is it more the perceived of where the money is being allocated to you, or is it more, what's the issue of, because if the money's not used, it can be allocated to whatever we see necessary.
Right.
But if it's the allocation, is that just, what I'm getting at is, what is the ultimate outcome you're looking for? Is it an objects view?
Well, and this is not just in this category, right? This is in many categories where I feel like what we're doing, and we, I mean, city staff, everyone involved is just saying, just in case, we need to put an extra $1,000 here. And just in case, we need to put an extra $1,000 in supplies and expenses. Just in case, we need an extra $1,000 in uniform allowance. We just in case, and it adds up to thousands of dollars that are just sitting somewhere just in case. Meanwhile, we have sidewalks that are.
So one of the things that you're coming into this a little later, so I think that's understandable. But Joe, maybe it might be good. I don't know if now is the time, but when we first sat down, we looked at what was used and what is being budgeted, and that what was used, I don't remember the amount, but it seemed like there was maybe a little bit, but there wasn't a lot.
Well, in the case of sidewalks, we spent $12,000 last year, and we allocated, what, 25?
Right, but this year that's going to be different. But when we're talking about all of those categories, it was made based on how much has been spent in past history.
Yes, and
So
I
past
looked
history.
across the past years, and I was mainly looking for ones that jumped. I wanted to see what's the justification for the jump in that. And if there is a justification, I'm on board. But if we're just saying, we want to jump it because we're not sure if we'll need more this year, that's where I have a problem. And sometimes, Jill and I had talked about book subscriptions, and I don't know what the rest of that category is, but and memberships. Have we actually analyzed what are we getting from these subscriptions? Are we utilizing the subscriptions that we're paying for? Has that been looked at? Or are we just saying, oh, let's just keep going with the subscription? And in fact, Jill was telling me there's a subscription that we did stop and it's still here in the budget because no one thought to move it out. And that's a big ask, right? That's a big task. There are many line items here, and it took me a while to go through them all. And I'm not saying I need to get all my questions answered today. It's more a general philosophy of, are we just going to sit back and say, well, we'll find our money for the sidewalk somewhere, but we need our $5,000 for going to St. George?
Well, I think that the money for the sidewalks comes from the capital expense budget, which is a little different than the training budget.
It's protected.
Yes, however, I don't know who proposed the increase in taxes this year, but we were asking for more money for sidewalks. And maybe you're looking at it as, well, we voted that down, we're not doing that. But I think to our residents, it looks like we're not caring for their tax dollars being set aside for things that may or may not be needed when something desperately needed. Now we're asking them for more money. And we're not, to be clear, we're not. But someone did. Someone needed to come to make a public comment against it. They felt it was threatening, to come upon them.
And part of that is that it's a few years ago, the council found that it was important that we do truth in taxation. And because we have to do truth in taxation, we have to come up with some reason to do truth in taxation. Okay, because our city has a resolution that says we have to do truth in taxation. Now, maybe I'm not 100% on target with it. My own personal belief is that I think we should rescind that particular ordinance, because I think the whole budgetary process is such to where we need to balance the budget based off of what we're projecting, but we don't necessarily always have to do truth in taxation. And quite frankly, the state has made the truth in taxation very complex and problematic, that just our process that we just went through cost us a lot of money, just to notice it and all that stuff, so we could do truth in taxation, and we could stir up the bee's nest with all of the citizens, even though we didn't need to do that. And that's a frustration that I've had as the mayor, is like, why do I have to do this when I didn't really need to do it? And yet it brings up all those feelings that residents have. And yeah, we do have money to be able to do the sidewalk project, and we have money to do some of these other things. And, you know, ultimately, it would be nice to have money to have a fall festival along with the summer festival to go along with the Easter egg hunt in the spring, you know, so that there's that. Right now, those are all different areas. But you know, I can tell you from my end, I'm learning a lot about city government budgeting, which is a whole lot different than my business outlook of budgeting. So, but I don't know where I'm headed with that topic, but anyway, I think that's the end that I would have to say.
I'm asking, are you proposing that we go line item by line item, addressing changes tonight?
Well, it sounds like we're a bit late in the process for that, given we need this by the end of August. So I will accept that situation exists, but I do think it's important for us to acknowledge to people that live in our city that we are watching their dollars, and we are not going to be asking for them to increase their property taxes when we haven't done exactly that.
I
We'll
think
do
we
each line
are.
item and figure out where we can get the money from.
I think we are, because if you look at last year, there was only 950 of that 5,000 that was used for training. But the reason that it's there is because the previous 2 years, there was 3,886 and 3,382.
Yeah.
And any money, like I said, that is not utilized can be utilized in any way that this body directs.
So then it makes me wonder why we increased it this year to 5,000 if we weren't spending that much.
It was set at 5,000 a year, I think the year prior. Is that right, Jill?
I'm looking.
All we have is actual, but I remember
Yes.
it being 5,000 the year
Fiscal year
prior.
26, we budgeted 5,000.
And that's why
And
it
the
is.
year prior, as you said, was 950.
950.
And the actual was 950.
So I
And so
think
they
that it's unwise to say, we had a small amount, we're worried that won't be enough, let's just bump it up as much as we think we can swallow.
So would it make you feel better if we put it at 1,000? And, I mean, I'm trying to say, what do you want to accomplish with this conversation tonight?
Well, I don't know that we want to go line item at this point.
Yeah, so
It
that's what
seems
I'm
like
asking
that's
is
what-
what's
We're
your...
not wanting to do that.
Well, what is
Potentially,
your-
we could send amendments to Jill and then approve it still.
What
but-
is your proposal of what you want to do tonight? Because if that, is it the changing of that? What's the purpose? What's the point?
The purpose would be to change that, but if we're saying, no, we don't have time for that, we need to get this done, August is coming to an end soon, then I can accept that.
So if you want that to be changed, then you probably need to be the one to make the motion.
She doesn't want to change it tonight.
Well, she said she does. She would be the one that needs to make the motion.
I think that given time constraints, it's not likely we'll get through all of the changes I would like to see, so maybe that is best suited for next budget cycle. But I just wanted to put it out there that these are the things I'm thinking about and my reservations about the vote that we're about to take.
See, and I don't have reservations because I know that things can be changed. And whenever you can make the change, it's fine.
Okay, can we entertain a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2623, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2027 final budget for Harrisville City, Harrisville Community Reinvestment Agency, and 4 Mile Special Service District. But we would need to remove item 10.31.115, or excuse me, we need to remove item 10.63.435 and omit 10.31.115 from the budget.
We just want to remove the 35,000, bring that line item back down to the original.
That's not what
1060.
3115, that 115 is.
Yeah, that's what omitting that was, right? Omit the
So-
35,000 from 10.31.150.
I just want to make sure I heard.
And
motion.
remove 10.63.435.
We don't want to remove that line item. We just want to change the amount back down to the 25,000. Removing that 35, that extra 35,000.
So adjusting, not remove, because
Yes.
you had said remove.
We need to omit the first one, what you did. We just need to remove the 35,000 from that line. So moving it back down to the 12. My apology.
But are we not going to ask her to bring that 35,000 from Class C funds? And not remove it entirely?
Once we find out what the numbers finally are,
Then we would.
then we'll come back with
So,
So I guess that's my concern, is if I don't find line items that we can take that 35,000 out of, which I have meticulously done, then what happens later when Jill comes back and says, we may not have that 35,000?
No, that 35,000 that we're taking from the truth and taxation is gone. We can't put it somewhere else. So
So
what
we need
we're
to
doing
find
is
it
we're just
somewhere.
removing that expense amount back down to the 25,000.
so there, what was presented last week, what you presented, there was $66,000 that wasn't allocated. Right, that was new growth. So there's $66,000 that's currently not accounted for in the
So do we
budgetary
need to
items.
vote to direct that to the sidewalks? Or are we just going to say, we trust ourselves to do that in the future?
So again, I'm going back to the point, whatever you want to do, you can motion to do. So that's up to you. But
I
if
would
you're gonna
prefer
do
not
that,
to leave the sidewalks hanging myself.
I don't think we're planning on leaving the sidewalks here.
An option you guys have is to omit the 35,000 because we're not doing that. Change that amount back down to the 25,000. And then you guys can say, okay, let's look at an amendment because we have up to 2 and we can do a little more construction on that end. And that can give us more time because this budget has to be approved by the end of this month
But we have 2 amendments that we
for
can
the whole year.
Yep.
But we could use one of those between now and the end of August to amend this budget.
It has to be done by August.
We can do it in November, December, January.
Oftentimes, we do a budget amendment in the middle of the year, either December or January, when we have projects like this. It's not uncommon for us to open the budget in December or January. We can allocate that money to the sidewalks or wherever this body deems it most important to be allocated.
So if I vote yes for the budget tonight, I could potentially give up leverage to get sidewalk funds. However, what I'm hearing from all of you is that you agree sidewalks need to be done. So if I have trust in that, then I could vote yes.
Well, and the one item we talked about before you came on was with that money to actually do that, increase the sidewalk with that additional money. They'll find out in the next month or so what that is. Add to.
We don't have all the final numbers to know where things need to go yet. And that's one of the problems that's been going on with changes that they made in state law. That we had to start producing numbers and pulling them out of the ether. We didn't even know what income numbers we were gonna have, and yet we had to be able to say we're having truth in taxation. And we don't even know what we're making yet. So that's a very difficult place to be put in. And, and so this process is definitely way different than sitting down at the kitchen table and saying, well, we know that we're making this much money and here's our expenses.
What I
So-
don't want is for the burden of that challenge to be put on the taxpayers.
It's not being put on the taxpayers. I think we all agree with that.
All right.
Can I briefly add one thing? I just think it's really important for all of you to understand the gravity of kind of where we're at with sidewalks. We currently have 1.9 miles of sidewalk issues. One of the issues is right here, Grand City Hall on Virginia Avenue, cul-de-sac. We have $25,000 in the sidewalk budget right now. And to make that correction, concrete alone is $22,880, tree and root removal is $2,650, and asphalt is $1,000. So a total of $26,550 for that one issue. I have GIS mapping that shows dots of everywhere staff has gone through almost the entire city yet that I can show you probably at another time. It's expensive. And so I just want to point out the gravity of what little $25,000 really covers.
Thank you.
But it didn't happen overnight either.
I'm sorry?
It did not happen overnight either.
Oh, it did not, no. And so for a 7-year plan that I would like to put together, you know, we would like to see $72,000 a year for sidewalks, if that gives you an idea. So we would, you know, I would ask for another $46,000 sometime along the line to go with the 25 that we have to start our 7-year plan.
No, but I think those are the points that we do agree, I think. So I'm just trying to make sure I have the wording clarified, Jill, if you'll help me.
Okay.
So on that 10, this would be the 10.63.435. That one needs to be changed from 35 to 25. Is that a correct statement?
Change it to 25,000, yes.
So then I'll start that motion again. I motion that we adopt resolution 26-23, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2027 final budget for Harrisville City, Harrisville Community Reinvestment Agency, and 4 Mile Special Service District by omitting line item 10.31.115 and changing 10.63.435 from 35,000 to 25,000.
Yes.
Okay, is that a motion? Do we have
I'll second.
second? Any discussion? Okay. This is a roll call. Councilman Wilhelmsen?
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kroll?
Yes.
Councilman Hadley?
Yes.
Our next item on our agenda is discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 2624, special event policy and permit. So, already packed it. Any discussion?
I've got discussion.
Let's do it.
Were we having a presentation first, or?
If you've all read through it, we're happy. If you've all had opportunity to read through it and look at the permit, I'm happy to open it up for discussion. We'll be here to support with answers.
Okay, so here's a couple questions I have. In C28.2, it reads that it may or may not require a permit. What are the factors that determine it may or may not require a permit? And who makes that determination?
So it says that it may be required for, but not limited to those. And we're happy to entertain whatever language you want to put in there. We kind of work backwards on this. We created the permit. Jack and Cynthia put it out to the recorders group, collected, actually he can speak better to it. I'll let him.
Okay.
Yeah. So we collected permits from a lot of the other cities in the county and then Davis County as well to kind of get a baseline for where everybody was at with this. And they're all over the place. There really isn't a standard other than if the Weaver Health Department requires it. That's kind of the basic standard.
Based on number?
Yeah, based on the number of people, how long the event's going to be. So we kind of went with that as our standard when we created this. The language in that specific part is not, we're happy to change it to whatever. We're kind of putting this together quickly. We used a lot of the wording from other ordinances that other cities are using, that they have found works well.
Yeah, that was my question, is just that may in there. So who makes the determination that it may require a permit? And what are the factors they use to make that determination?
So I think one of the most important ones is what Jack pointed out. If you have 500 plus people in a space, the health department wants you to have a mass gathering permit.
Okay.
Another one would be road closures, for example. If they're going to have a block party and it's going to impact the public street, we would require a permit. If somebody's just having a social gathering at the Bowery and they rented the Bowery, I don't believe we have to require a special event permit for those private events that we. So if you want to change it to stronger language, we're happy to do that. We're giving some examples more than we were the language about may being required. If you want to be specific, these types of events require a special event permit. We personally like the word may, but yes, it does have to come with some guidelines based on what they're applying for. If it also fun run maybe leaves the park and is incorporated through the neighborhood, that would be another reason why we might want a special event permit, because we want to make sure that the runners are safe. So that's up for discussion for the council. We were just putting together a template for you.
That was just my question. I just, when you use the may word, I just think, okay, someone's got to make a decision. And how do they make the decision? Or how does someone know, what do I need to apply or not?
So a lot of the other cities, when we spoke to them, they put it before the department head. So like Roy, for example, their fire department, their police chief, their public works, they kind of get together and decide, does this one need a permit based off our, these guidelines, yes or no? And then they, depending upon the time frame, some require 5 days, some have 15-day response windows that they'll get back to the applicant for.
So that was another question I had, and you kind of addressed it, is do we have something about when does someone need to make an application before the event? How long, how many days before the event? What's the cutoff date of making an application?
Cynthia and I were kind of tossing around about 60 days beforehand, and then we would have a window anywhere from that 5 to 15 days to give them a response of, yes, you need this permit, kind of here's what we're going to need, or no, you don't need the permit. So we'll give them about 50 to 45 days to get those things in order for that.
So I think it would be good to have what that time limit is.
We can have that.
To do.
But we do need to consider where we are right now in the year.
Right.
If we're looking at October, that's basically 60 days from here. So they won't have a lot of time.
The second or third is on C-28.5. We really ought to put what the rates are. We just have a blank.
We didn't have them at the time.
Oh, you had those
We
now?
didn't have those at the time we were putting the template together, but we have an average of $65 for police services per hour. And we haven't calculated out the benefits, but we have $45 per hour for public works / parks. But we need to make sure.
So is that's not based on,
That is based on
this sheet.
an overtime rate for the employee, because that would be the highest rate that we would pay, is if an employee is in overtime hours for these events. They're typically going to be held on weekends or evenings. So again, this is all for council to discuss. If you want to set a different rate, these were just the rates that we determined based on what the employees' rates are.
the other question I have, and this is in that may or may not, I'm thinking of a tradition that happens on North Harrisville Road every 4th of July, where it's a kids parade. And I'm thinking, how do the citizens come up with a $1 million insurance policy? Because it's just a community, we're doing this for a half hour, and everyone comes from all over. And say, everything else has a may, but it says, no, this is, everybody needs to have that policy. And I wonder, how does a neighborhood come up with a policy?
Can I ask a clarifying question about that? We already have a permit application for this, right? I thought the purpose of this was that we're going outside the season.
No, we don't have a special event permit currently.
So this can be put in, let's do this to consider this, but I agree with you, they were first, now this is second. So it's
Right,
like-
I misunderstood. I thought we were saying we'll allow them to use the regular process, but just it'll be later in the year.
Yeah.
When normally we wouldn't accept them.
So our suggestion in the discussion at last meeting about this festival was to allow them to reserve the Bowery outside the Bowery reservation season. That isn't the special event permit.
So we're escalating to something a bit bigger.
This is based not just on the Fall Festival request, this is coming to us from a block party request and also another fun run request at the park.
Okay,
And
that helps
so
me.
this isn't just exclusively the Fall Festival question, this is a special event permit. And I do agree with you, Councilmember Montgomery, requiring insurance. The challenge is that for example, the city's local government trust that covers our city properties, they won't cover bounce houses. That's why we don't allow bounce houses at the park, because they won't cover the city if someone is injured on a bounce house. So we want to make sure if we're allowing special event permits that the city is not responsible, liable for the activities that are taking place. So I don't disagree with your concern. We
how the
don't want to
parade
make it so expensive that people can't afford to have a special event permit, but that's for the council to decide. And fortunately, we have legal counsel with us tonight too, so he can chime in on the things that are super important for us to include in the permit. You can rewrite, omit, add, whatever you want. This was just a baseline we started with.
And one of my concerns on the insurance requirement is when you're talking about commercial general liability. And I don't think an individual can get a commercial policy. It has to be filed under some entity. So are we going to require people to create an entity so they can get commercial coverage, so they can have this event that they're wanting to have? I mean, think of it as a wedding, right? Someone wants to use it for their wedding.
Sure.
The couple's going to form, you know,
Not me.
we're not going to pretend though, you know, if it was, you know, you have two separate last names and if, you know, /L, that certain last name, LLC, and then go and get commercial insurance so that they can,
Yeah.
I have concerns about that. And also thinking about it from a standpoint, it puts them in a hard place because just talking about it in my business, you know, when we do, our business has done weddings and things like that in the past, and when we do weddings and they need the insurance, they usually turn to a vendor to put a rider on their policy. And so I'm carrying all the risk of the whole event, and most vendors aren't going to be willing to do that when you're talking that kind of event. They don't want people jacking up their insurance rates because they do something crazy enough.
Yeah, agreed. Some of the challenges that we're facing with
So I don't-
having a permit.
So from a legal standpoint, can you put like indemnification agreements? Like to indemnify the city from legal responsibility of an event?
You could do that. One of the things too is the city probably, and I haven't worked for the city, but a lot of cities have insurance covering events too. It's not part of having a private person do that, so it's something you guys can look at.
But we could potentially charge the organizers whatever it costs us, or is that not an extra fee that just comes along with what we pay already? Is that an
I'm sorry,
unfair question?
I don't work. I haven't worked for your city, so I don't know the answer to that question. I just know we were part of the Utah Risk Management Mutual Association, self-insured, and we would talk to them from time to time on different events that might be happening. Sometimes we just had to take the risk. Sometimes the insurance covered. We did shift to insurance, later insurance companies, who would cover different events that we were having, you know, all of our events. So you probably know, or you
Yeah.
probably have something like that anyway.
So yeah, we have a policy with the Utah Local Governments Trust What I don't know is whether they would come to cover something off-site of city property.
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of
whether they do
these
that or
would
not.
be, mhm.
Yeah, so if that's the case, it may be different. So you just, sometimes there's certain risks that you take, but that's up to you guys.
So would that trust cover something if you rented out the Bowery?
Yes, as long as it's not a bounce house.
Which is why we're looking at a permitting process, because then we can look and see what the plans are and whether
Exactly.
it falls under.
Well, let me ask this then too. Again, I'm just thinking of the 4th of July on North Harrisville Road. So the road's closed, but generally there's, well, at least this year, there was no police presence. So would the fees be applicable at that point if officers aren't there?
So I think that's up for the council to decide.
Okay.
If it's a road closure, is the council going to require a police presence? Are you going to, that's the question we're asking council.
Okay.
We'll do whatever you decide. We'll implement whatever you decide. We don't want to be the fun crashers either. Because some of these events that you speak of are a decade or more old that have taken
Yeah.
place for a while in the city.
Well,
We're just getting requests for these more frequently now.
yeah. And I'm going to try something, but it's based on the idea of priority of the request that's on the next item of the agenda versus this that's now come. And I'm recommending that we table this to think about some of these questions we brought up as far as this ordinance at this time. To table it, to think of some criteria, some of the things we brought up, when is appropriate, when it's not appropriate, to do that, knowing that the other request is already before us, and that this would have an impact on that.
But there is some overlap here when you start talking about using city services, as police department, public works, at an hourly rate, there is an overlap that needs to have some consideration, and they need to know that information.
Which we haven't considered before.
No, we haven't, but if we
And that's
table,
why I'm tabling this now.
but if you table this, they don't get their answer.
Oh, yes, I do. Because this is separate from theirs.
It's two different agenda items.
Okay, that's fine then. I just wanted to make sure we weren't finding the city still out in limbo, trying to figure it out, when we've given you permission to go ahead and do that, and we still have to cover our costs. Does that make sense? That's all I'm saying.
Right now, we're status quo in second.
Okay,
So I'd make a motion to table this for us to come up with some thoughts on things we discussed tonight.
so a motion to table, do we have a second? No second?
I think I would second that, actually.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No,
So we have 3 ayes and 1 no, Williams and no. Okay. So we'll table until the next meeting, is that the?
Yes.
September? Next item on our agenda is discussion and possible action to approve the Pioneer Elementary Fall Festival celebration, which I'm the one that's listed on here as the person, but I think you've all heard the comments from Pioneer and their desire, and I know we had some pretty significant discussion last month, but I think if we're gonna approve, let them do the fall festival on the city property, then you're probably gonna have to outline some of the things of expectation for that, where we don't have a permitted place. And it may be specific to just this one event, but we need to take those into consideration about what may happen. Are we willing to supply the police department? Is there gonna be a cost associated with that? if the city's gonna cover fees on that, how is that gonna be budgeted out? And where does that money come from? So some of the things you need to consider.
So one of the things, and I know in the letter we received from Kalani, there was a thought in there about, still being a joint event, but the city's participation is a lot less or nil, other than the police presence and the porta potty, extra porta potty with that. And that was, having a community Halloween alley. Have different people come, neighbors come up, decorate pumpkins, they do a pumpkin walk along the park, and it takes all the people that are coming for the one and also have come for the other, so there's a mutual benefit in that. And I thought that was, kind of a good idea, saying we're in a transition, but it doesn't mean we're just doing one activity. I think the thing from what Jason was involved with says, people want to come out, people want to do things. And I think we ought to have a variety of things for people to come out to do. That's how we build community.
And I know I had some discussion with Jenny whenever I met with her last.
So long ago.
I mean, she talked about the fall festival and where it began. And I think part of the historical information regarding that is important. I mean, we were at a point in Harrisville City where there may have not been a lot of interest in the city council that served at the time of organizing, or maybe there wasn't a lot of interest from residents in general, and staff was taking the brunt of it versus the citizens of Harrisville. One of my conversations I had as I was running for mayor was, I want to see community activity. I want to see the community get involved. And we've seen that in the America 250, where there was a lot of volunteers that came out and they made a big deal about it. And I brought this up with the meeting with Jenny was, when COVID hit, we had Cherry Days in North Ogden. It was on the verge of, they were disbanding. They were not going to do it. And there was a group of citizens, one of those happened to be a friend of mine, and he said, no way. This has gone on for all these years, and they got together a big community effort with volunteers, and they made Cherry Days happen during COVID, right? And so that can happen as well in Harrisville. And I think that that didn't happen in Harrisville, that we wanted to do something, there wanted to be some, staff wanted to do something. And so that's when Pioneer approached and they started the Fall Festival. Okay? There's all different viewpoints of how many kids are going to Pioneer, how many are over in Majestic, who's all involved in it. It was a community event, and Harrisville was being involved in that by sponsoring certain things, from food to supplying police. And we got a pretty good taste of all of those things that are being contributed by the city with our last discussion. And yet I think ultimately, if I'm the mayor, not the king, if I had my gavel and I could say, I would like to have an activity in the fall, and I'd like to have an activity in the summer, and I'd like to have an activity in the spring, that Harrisville gets involved in those things. As a city, that means budget money, all that. Now, I don't believe that's part of the budget for 26, 27, right? It possibly could be from some fund, which isn't going to happen between now and October. But I think that ultimately down the road, those are things that we can look at having happen, right? And so I think tonight we have to give some guideline to Pioneer. So I think for the most part, we're open to support Pioneer in this effort. How are we going to support? Are we going to support it by providing overtime from the police? I mean, I had to approve with some objection, overtime for the police to govern fireworks in the city, right? Sometimes you make those calls just from very fact of safety, right? They may have that happen coming from the city council. You may have to make that call. There may be things that you're not willing to pay for that event, that they're gonna have to pay for based off their fundraising. And so I think at this point, we just need to put together some way to allow them to do this activity with the guidelines of how it will work with us providing the park and the pavilion. I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, no, maybe if I could then maybe it would be appropriate to ask a question to the
Sure.
whoever's the spokesman, Lonnie. So as I understand it, what you talked about last time, what your proposal is that Pioneer would take care of the food, hot dogs, drinks. You take care of those items. You take care of the trunk or treat as far as others donating, having businesses and that come here to go about.
Yes.
We are always invited to participate as far as dressing up and meeting the citizens of the area. We'd be still allowed to do something like that if we wanted to.
For sure, we would love to have you be in our trunk or treat.
There's no expectation of any fireworks or any entertainment,
No.
other than if we, as a city, decide, let's tell the citizens, come carve a pumpkin and bring it, and we'll have an alley to walk down as part of what goes along with something like this. So the only real question is what we're talking about is paying overtime for police and public works to be there.
Correct. May I bring up one point? I mean, I don't have final numbers of our celebration, but our preliminary numbers with our budget and what we were given by the city, there's extra that was there. I just don't know how much. And so, I mean, I would love to see that be used forward to cover salaries and things like that, so that there could be staffing there. But I just don't have a
We don't know the number yet.
proposed.
Right. We would really appreciate that.
Another request I would make, which sort of came from your letter of these ideas about including others, you know, where we've reached out to the other school, they're not interested in having it be a school sanctioned event, but is there a way that we can say, okay, our 6th graders are participating in this way, but we also open it up to any child who lives in Harrisville who wants to have a booth or something like that?
Yes. We talked about that a little bit, and it's hard to divide money out that way. If they would like to just come and participate, we would never turn them away. Where it gets a little sticky is figuring out, oh, did this person pay for tickets for this or for that? We would welcome anyone
I
to
see
come.
the dilemma there, but I think it's something that really should be worked through because we do not want it to say, these 12-year-olds get to participate.
For sure.
And you're a 12-year-old, you don't go to our school,
Yeah.
you can't do it. So I think
And
it's
that's
worth
why-
really looking at how we can do that.
That's why I also brought up the pumpkin walk or the spook alley. Like if they want to put a spook alley up or do something like we're welcome to ideas and
And I think they'll just need guidance because your average kid of that age won't necessarily know, oh, wow, this is what I can do and what I can't do. So if you could put out some very clear guidance, these are the ways, specific ways any child can participate. It doesn't have to be with money.
Right.
Tickets, but just coming up with some specific ideas for that, I think would help.
we could take that on and figure out some different ways to get.
And then that would help us justify if we're putting our resources toward it. How is it benefiting all of the Harrisville kids?
Yeah, I like that.
Not necessarily financially, but
Yes,
community-wise.
as a community.
So if we were to list expectations, is that the outreach and everything else is being done by the PTA. The food is being done by the PTA. The setting up who's going to be there is done by the PTA. I think someone made mention once do we even need to do it in the parking lot? Can it be on the field somewhere? And let the parking lot serve as a parking lot? I
We
don't
did
know.
talk about that. If we want to keep the trunk or treat, which I think is a huge draw
Then do
to
it
this, I feel like we need a parking
Okay.
lot.
Okay.
Just because if they go around the track, it's a little harder to get people in their setup.
Yeah.
But it's an option, for sure.
Chief Wilson?
Just for a security aspect of that whole event, that parking lot needs to be shut down. I mean,
Okay.
we've all seen incidents where people use cars as weapons, right?
Yeah.
We don't need them near the kids, and we
Okay.
don't need that kind of a security problem for us. I
Okay.
think that parking lot needs to be closed.
Okay.
So we would just want some clear direction as staff members. The fall festival has grown, and we would hope for it to be successful again this year, which would require a mass gathering permit through Weaver Human Service, or excuse me, Weaver Morgan Health Department. Would the council like the city to take that on, or is that going to be a requirement? There is a cost associated with that,
You know what the cost is typically?
$350.
So, I mean, again, I don't know final numbers, because we budgeted high, and there were some things that came in lower on a lot of the things that we did. But according to our calculations, there was about 1,400 that was still remaining, but it could be less than that. I know that one of the things we didn't have was waters and ice, and so I don't know what the waters and ice cost. There are some things that weren't in that budget, you know, so I mean, if that was being set aside for community events, I'd love for that to still move forward for a community event.
And then another question for staff's direction. If it transfers for the outreach with the PTA, would you want us to help support through our social media and newsletter to publicize the event?
I would say yes, because I think it's still something saying, as a city, we are trying to get people come together. Here's something we're doing.
Any other head nods on that? Yes? Okay, I see 3.
Is there any other direction that we need to?
So we need to do a motion on this?
Yes.
So we'll have to have a motion, but when you do the motion, they need to be kind of outlined, like, these things are the things the cities are willing to take care of, and the other things need to be the PTA.
Did you have a comment?
I did. I just wanted to see if we clarified police and public works. That was the only reason I really said no, because it was still very, very void. It's very much. So is this a clarification we need to make before we make a motion? Who takes care of police? Who takes care of the costs on public works? And how much is it?
So my initial understanding is that there's leftover money in the community events from the America 250 that would go towards paying for the mass gathering permit and to provide security and public works support for the event.
So then if we're going over and above that, are we going to ask the PTA for fundraising? Is that?
So that's
Well-
where does it come from?
I guess I'm looking at Chief and saying, you know, you've had many years' experience of doing this now. You know how it operates.
So
And Brian, you know how it operates. There wouldn't be anything new in terms of what you have to plan for, because you know what you've planned for before, how to make that work. So it's not like we're reinventing that, but there is, of course, a cost to it. But at least you're familiar with what needs to be done.
So just a question that's possible for the motion. Can we put it in the words such as, you know, that we approve to use whatever remaining budget there is, and if there's any additional cost, that would be communicated, and that would go back over to Pioneer to cover?
Yeah, that's going to be tricky with salaries, right? Because to Greg's point, you have, we'd have to run it a little differently than I think we did in the past, where people are on duty specifically for that event. Is that typically what we've you've done?
Normally, for our events, it's a mandatory appearance for anyone that hasn't been excused, yes.
So we might.
I think you're looking at a little more resources with having the fireworks. It's a later night plus more people. I think we could do with less officers than what we would have for our city event.
So we have a time frame. And beginning is not the issue, but how late do you want to go?
Oh, we would just have set up being that for
So it typically runs from 5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Did that because of the fireworks, so we can change that time.
And we're not locked into a time. But if we could be out of there before it was dark and don't have to
That's where
rent the
I'm
lights
going.
and
Yeah.
to do all that, I think we would all prefer that.
Would you be looking at less than 2 hours? Would that be a goal?
Actually, yes.
Because that eliminates the mass gathering permit.
So, if we were shorted it by 15 minutes, would that be our issue is we have to get the kids there and have them set up their booths. Like, they're all totally responsible for doing it, which Brian, I know you know because you've done this for years. But once they have them set up, it's so quick for them to break it down.
I don't think that part calculates into the time as long as it's the time that your event is scheduled.
2 hours of 500 or more people in the space, so if.
So
you're
if we
gonna have
had it
500
running
people
at a
there.
certain time, if we advertised the certain time, that's what we would have to. So could we advertise it for an hour and
5 to
45
6.
minutes? Yeah, or whatever, and, okay.
I mean, honestly, they're pretty done. They're 12. After an hour and a half, they're done.
So are the grandparents.
So that
Yeah, so are the teachers, we're tired, we want to have moms do.
So that would eliminate, to Brian's point, that would eliminate the mass gathering requirement if we're not there for more than 2
For more than 2
And
hours.
that would be, free up some costs to put towards the police and public works.
Does that's just for the advertising time? We can come and set up before that.
Agree, yes.
And if their takedown takes longer, it's okay.
Yes.
It's just the time that we
The
run.
event that you're gonna have
Okay.
500 or more people.
Just to
in.
clarify. We can do that.
What's the date?
October 20th.
And there would also be for any unpackaged food, a $65 temporary food permit from the health department. I would just want clarification on if the city's going to handle that or not.
Well, they're handling the food, so
So you'd handle permits as well, I would think.
We can get the food permit.
I'm sorry, one more time on the date.
The 20th. It's the third Tuesday of October. We're trying to keep it
Yeah.
the same.
So the question is what happens to the overages once our funds run out? Is that passed on to the PTAs? Pick up the differences on police and public works? You know, we're not trying to make it ugly, we're just trying to clarify and define what you guys want us to do.
Yeah, we would take anything you would allow us to have, and that we just need to know what we have to work with as time is now dwindling.
So what would your time frame be? Just in the hour and a half that we'd have police protection? Are we talking 3-hour block of time, you know, that you would need to make sure that things are cleaned up, everything's gone home, and all children are put to bed?
I think that's up to council, how long you want us to be there. I mean, usually myself and the assistant chief is one of the 2 people that will be at the event.
Okay.
And it's a both, I mean, we're salary, so, I mean, we're rather.
you have an overtime usually.
Right, so we would, as the discussion, we would donate our time, we would be there, the 2 of us. And I would probably say that we'd need 2 other people. Usually when I schedule events, I schedule officers in pairs, always in pairs, right? So you'd be a couple hours for 2 other officers.
Ryan, what would you do?
So we're probably with 3 staff members, 3 hours into the overflow parking up on top of the main ball field, which I would expect that you would still need.
I would think so.
That will, That will be done during staff's time though. That would be done on Monday if the festival is on Tuesday. So how you want to work that, because it wouldn't necessarily be overtime. We would do that during the workday.
That was still important.
Yeah, and then I'm salaried and I'm happy to attend. I would want to be there. And then I would ask for at least 2 other staff members for those.
Okay, that just gives me some idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brian, can I clarify, you will do the parking, correct? You will direct traffic into the parking lots?
So that's going to be more staffing. We'll need.
Or is that like, could we have volunteers, like is that something we could do and get volunteers to direct traffic, or is that something that has to be done through the city?
I don't think it necessarily has to be done through the city. I mean, you have to, we do want you to wear reflective vests and
For
those
sure.
types of things, which we have.
Uh-huh.
So you could take care of that.
Okay.
We would have a light up there, to illuminate the whole thing like we usually do. So,
If I just write that down and we can talk about it
Sure.
in the future.
yeah. Yeah, we have it totally set up for you though.
You're talking about just having them park cars, not actual traffic.
Correct.
Yeah. We're not gonna go shut down the 89.
We'll have those PTA people out on 89.
They're good at it, they're good at everything. We just take on all the hats, don't we? The PTA.
Well,
Beverly can take charge on that part.
I'm getting closer to losing my slipper.
Okay. Go ahead and say what you need. That's what I do.
You got everything that I just did that.
Do you see any math on that paper?
I have.
No, I think we need to propose to go ahead and approve the Pioneer Fall Festival with the contribution that we have discussed as far as part of the police that will be donating their time as far as salaried people. And I think Brian's saying the same thing for Public Works. But then you're saying that you need at least 2 more paid for, and probably 3 or 4, depending on if you're helping. That needs to be coordinated. We have probably left over in the budget enough to cover about $750 up to $850 that's left over from the 250. So that could be going towards contributing for police and public works. And I guess the understanding would be that we would need to come to the PTA for the difference if there was an overage, specifically for public work employees and police officers. That's my proposal.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Jason, is that the number that you remember, 750? I thought it was higher.
No, I think it is higher, but we just totaled up what they were talking about, and it ended up being about 750. So they're saying 750
That's
to
what I
850.
Somewhere in there.
We
But
don't know a
it's
final
possible
number.
we could cover the entire cost. We don't know yet.
We don't
But
know.
we can guarantee we can take care of the police.
And that would include, well, we don't have mass gathering permit if we go.
If you go less than 2 hours.
Right.
So I mean, that's just a total chunk of money going towards services.
One thing, is there a possibility, like, if Majestic wanted to do their thing, if they could sell tickets on their own for their own booths?
We did talk about that, and if they want to, we would be open to having them, but we would need to keep the funds separate. It's too hard to figure
Right,
out.
I'm
the
just
two
saying,
things.
I know last year it seemed like there was a table set up and people were buying tickets to participate in the
Yes.
people. If another school wanted to do it, they could set up another table and they could buy tickets for their organization and then they could
So
all
yeah.
participate.
Correct.
My suggestion is we leave that up to you.
Yeah.
Then we don't have to worry about it.
I know, I'm just saying, I would like to try to have everybody be inclusive in the best we possibly can.
So do we want to include as part of the motion, there is some way that all children of Harrisville can participate of that age?
I mean, I think that.
Even if it's not the school.
I think it would that would be fine if they wanted to participate, but I think that they're gonna have to want to participate.
Of course, but there's an option
Sure.
that's open to all residents of Harrisville.
I don't know if we need to put that in the proposal. It can just be generic and say Fall Festival Celebration.
So we have a motion that's kind of standing out there. Do we need to change that motion at all, or we want to keep it the same?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we address what the concerns that we've heard from residents, that are we favoring the kids from Pioneer? And so if we make it clear that in our motion, and maybe no one agrees with me, but if we make it clear in our motion that we expect this will be opened as an option for all children of Harrisville of 6th grade age, or I don't know, those who that go to a different school are still welcome to participate in this event. In more than just the trunk or treat, like they could set something up if they want.
So let me see if I can clarify, and we'll start all over, okay? So I make the proposed motion that we approve the Pioneer Elementary Fall Festival on October 20th. Understanding that monies that will be left over from the 250th celebration will go towards taking care of police and public work employees to sponsor this event, with the understanding that if there are other children who want to participate, that is open through your PTA. How's that?
I don't know about through your PTA, is that?
Well, I'm trying to keep it on our table,
Right.
but it's the
But that
fact is
they're
it's
not,
open.
they're not members of that PTA, they can't be, but that they are.
But it's their event,
Right.
and that's all I'm saying. So allowing other people
Maybe
to
I'm being too,
participate.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm not trying to stumble over the pebbles here. But I think that's something that you're open to, and that's fine. So I think stating it as it's an open-ended action, that you're welcoming others that want to come and ask.
Right.
That's really all I'm saying.
For the benefit of all the residents of Harrisville that may watch this or be listening, may know.
And I'll second that.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Motion and a second.
It is expending funds, it's just a roll call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number one, number two, number three.
Jack was supposed to give you the list.
I realized after the meeting started, I did not get you that much knowledge.
Sure, here's your agenda list right there.
Councilman Hadley. Yes. Councilman Wilhelmsen.
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery.
Yes.
Councilwoman Paul.
Yes.
Okay. You're approved.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is tabled till next month, so we won't be addressing that. 7, we'll have a staff follow-up. We're going to start with Chief Wilson.
Well, I feel like that we've had plenty of opportunities to update the council in the last few weeks, so I don't have a ton. We did have our active shooter training up at Bowmanville Elementary last week, and it went great. It was an awesome event. Everybody, the fire department, North Ogden, Pleasant View, we had dispatch there, kind of a mock incident of an active shooter. We had some role players from what is it called? One of the work groups anyways. The fire department brought us about 9 role players. They enjoyed it. They liked to see the interaction. I had a couple of them talk to me that, it was kind of interesting that they saw it that way, but one of them made the comment that it's just crazy we have to train for this stuff. So kids that age get it too, and it was a good event. We look forward to doing more of them. We're going to try to do at least a new school each year. I mean, it's a big event, hard to get to school. A lot of coordination went into it. Nick did a great job, so it was awesome. Yeah, good things.
Good.
Mayor, if you don't mind if I be excused, I've got 3 herniated discs. That's why I've been standing most of the time. So I'm feeling he supplied me with a little bit of Tylenol. So, yeah, oh, you bet. Sorry I wasn't aware of how that you know, the proposal that you're coming up with for that. I haven't read through it yet, so, but it was nice to see how you guys do everything. You're really a good council, so it was nice to be here, other than a back that gives me trouble, so.
I want to hear from Mr. Blackburn about what he's.
Well, I'm not doing a whole lot. I retired 3 years ago, so I still do a little bit for a fire district, and I'm designated attorney for Small Business Administration, so I do a little bit of work for them, but maybe about 10 hours a month. It's not much. It's not. So, you guys have a great night.
Okay, get feeling better.
Feel better.
Thanks. One of these years, it's going to get better.
I don't think so.
There goes my hope.
Brian?
Thank you. Just to put on your minds, fireworks, if you want to go forward with that next year, we get a $500 discount to pay early. So we could pay now and determine a date later. That's not a big deal, but just put that on your minds. The sooner the better, probably on that. We're going to
Is there a
start.
deadline that you know of?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. We're going to be starting a project in the park. As you drive down the lane to the park, back to the Bowery, there's 3 tiers of block wall. Our parks lead, Kevin Wilbur, secured a grant and got us over 300 flowers, perennials that we're going to plant in those 3 tiers. We're going to have to take down the top fence to be able to get in, to get some equipment back in there to put topsoil and things like that. So you'll see that project going on, and super proud of Kevin for looking into grants. He's always good at doing that. And then we do have a community gardening class Friday. I think it's at 9 a.m. That's harvesting and preserving. Again, that's Kevin's deal. He's done a great job with that, but just so you know that that's upcoming as well. We've got a lot going on, but it's great to be busy. So
I want you guys to take particular attention to the sidewalk on Highway 89. It looks good. Thank you.
staff did a great job.
I mean, they did an awesome job. And they swept it off, and they got the weeds under control. And I took my wife on a tour of the sidewalk. But not by foot, by car.
It all counts.
They did good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll pass it on.
Jenny?
Yes, I'll be brief, but I do have a couple of items. Based on the council's direction in June to report back on change orders related to the City Hall Public Safety Building, we have approved 2 change orders since June. One was another elevator shaft code change. This time they required metal plates to be put around lighting that runs in the entire shaft of the elevator. So they have welded protective covers around lights. That seems a little counterproductive in my opinion, and we had to pay the electrician to run lighting up the entire chamber. That total was $9,843.97. Rocky Mountain Power also required a 4th 4-inch conduit to be provided to assist in the power related to that. So that was included in that same change order. There was a discrepancy in the drawings for the drinking fountain on the 2nd floor. When the plumber did his bid, he omitted the drinking fountain itself. They were rough plumbing it, but the drinking fountain was not included in their total appliances. They did meet us halfway on the drinking fountain. They accepted partial responsibility there. That change order was $3,083.22. But I do have for you, and I know we're a little bit at decision fatigue at this level. We had another discrepancy in the drawings versus what was bid out in our IT bid. So the architect included a projector screen as part of the council chambers. These monitors on the sides, there's 3 monitors, 2 up here and 1 here that's not on the display. Those are already included. What we're discussing or looking for feedback tonight is whether the council would like this projector screen. It's a 182 inches by 89 inches, or the IT bid included 2 90-inch screens to be permanently mounted behind the council. So there is a cost savings applied to whichever you decide, because there were certain things omitted. So the projector itself was omitted on this bid. So if you want to go this route, there will be $4,000 credited for not purchasing these TV screens to go towards an approximate $8,500 projector cost. Then there's a mounting that would have to happen. I don't have a projected cost on the mounting. We're just trying to find out which one you prefer. The screens here are included in the IT bid. Again, we would be credited the projector screen at $4,000, but we would have to run electrical wiring and do some supports on that wall because the TVs are large. This would be the most cost-effective option if you're looking for cost-effective. This is the larger of the screens. They've given us these renderings so you can see this is from the back row, I believe. From the back row, if we have all the chairs set up, this is what their rendering would show the projector screen, and this would be what the monitors look like.
So I know that part of the projection screen is to make it bigger, but I know that projection screens they're a lot more expensive to maintain. Those bulbs only last 3,000 to 4,000 hours, and they're expensive. They're half the projector, if not 3/4 the projector costs. So if it's going to be an $8,000 projector, every bulb's going to cost $4,000 plus to exchange. That's probably why I would lean more towards the TVs, just for that sake, because the TV will last much, much longer in its life. And the people will look at the screens. North Ogden's setup is very similar, and I've been in their council meetings. And the people in the back, they just turn and look at the screens to the sides.
So you're not talking about a screen that has a projection onto it. You're talking about the screen is a large projection in and of itself.
No, the screen is included in R&O's bid already, but the projector itself was not included in the IT bid.
Right, so it's not an LED screen. It's you have a projector mounted there.
I know. The projector little bulbs they generally run at least half the cost of the projector, and they only last about 3,000 to 4,000 hours. And that goes pretty quick. I have one on my work, and we use it almost all day, every day, and I replace it every 2 to 3 years. So it's going to be a $4,000 investment every 2 to 3 years.
I just know in Ogden, we had that, the big screen, and everyone could see it, and when you're up here presenting, it's easier to do your presentation. No one is saying, I can't see that. And, that's kind of where I went back with the other thing about how many side screens you need, because everyone really is looking up front. And
So the side screens are already included in the IT bid. But we do, I didn't want to make that decision on our own, so I am asking you to give us direction on which you prefer.
Question about the 2 screens. Is it required that all of these screens show the exact same thing, or could these screens potentially show different things?
So a staff member asked me that earlier, and I'm not 100% sure with the technology now. It seems like we probably could label them. They all are going to be set up as an extended display, so they would have the same information on them for a council meeting.
But will they be wired for us to be able to change that if we want?
I do not have an answer to that.
How big are the screens?
These are 90-inch monitors. This is much larger. It's 182 inches by 89 inches.
How big is this screen here?
This is 70. Oh, it's been a while since we bought this one.
72,
72 or yes,
Yeah.
yes. Both options are bigger than this.
How about the side ones? Are they the same?
The side ones are not. I don't believe they're 90 inch. inch ones. Do you remember? I don't think they're
I don't
90
think we
inches.
discussed what the side
But,
ones were.
yeah, they're large, but not 90 inches.
That's fine, so.
Are you saying that labor to install those two was included? Or not labor, just the screens themselves?
The screens were included, it was the electrical wire outlets are not run. Because the electrician was expecting a projector. And so they would want to put blocking to support those heavy monitors and run the electrical. But we would get a credit for not purchasing the projector screen that I'm gonna guess would help offset that cost. This option, the projector itself wasn't included. We would get a credit of $4,000 for the two screens here to apply towards that, but that would be the more costly option.
But we had already talked about how to install that, as far as
The electrical,
that was already.
the electrical and the internet has been run, the conduit is there, but the contractor pointed out they would want to mount something that the projector would be supported by. So there's some labor and materials related to the projector as well. But I'm just looking for your preference as a council so that we go that direction.
I mean, my preference is the big screen, because I think everyone can see it.
Is there an option for the projector that may be less costly for service? It might cost more upfront, but less cost.
I can look into different projectors if that's the option you want to go. We asked them yesterday for a price that we could present to you tonight because we wanted to make sure we got your.
So one of the other things that's potentially bad about projection, you see all those windows that it's going to be up against. Projection, even though you can have projectors that show well in light, they never show very well in light. Where a TV always will.
These will have some shade options on the glass.
Is that on the east side of the building or west?
It's on the east side. Yes, it faces east. So in the evening, the sun will be on the other side of the building. Or down, like it is tonight for us. I'm not looking for a motion, but I do need a head nod for what your option is.
I will start, my preference is the two screens, not the projector.
Mine's the two screens as well.
And mine's the projector.
I'm good with the two screens.
Right? We'll go that direction, thank you. That's all I have.
So we go with the TVs, is that what we do? Okay. Council? Thoughts? Comments?
I wanted to report on the America 250 numbers from the service. We did food collection and we were able to donate 140 pounds of food to the Tri-City Food Exchange, so that was wonderful. And then we did the letters to military and families. 38 letters were written to military servicemen and women, and 10 letters were written to military families. And I was able to take those over to Katie Calhoun, who works for Operation Homefront, and she is very close to population from Hill Air Force Base, and she said they would be greatly appreciated, so I was glad for that. We handed out, I wasn't able to count the t-shirts that were left over, but there were a handful left over, I would guess around 50, so we probably handed out 350 t-shirts that whole day. And so I think Brian probably knows where the rest are, but I wonder if we could pull them out
They should
for
have
the
been
fall
brought here.
festival. Or I don't know, have them here, people can come get them. I would like them to be handed out if possible.
So, yes, so the mayor and I
Is that
spoke
happening?
about those.
Okay.
They have a night out for crime that our police department's participating in with the youth city council. They were going to take them there, and if there are any left over from that, we'll bring them to the fall festival.
Wonderful. Okay, let's just keep, because they do say 2026 on them, so we need to get that this year. And then our beautifying projects, we got the wood chip spread, and we had some garbage collected, so I was pleased with the turnout of the participation. Our residents are wonderful.
Nice event.
That's all for me.
Yeah, just a comment, I thought it turned out well for the inaugural event, and just go up from here. And so appreciate everyone's efforts to put this all together. You did a wonderful job.
I have two reports. One's from the mosquito abatement. Mosquitoes are down. There's no water. But we did have a climb in West Nile virus. There was 11 over the state of Utah. So it's gone up. And I can't, nobody knows why, but all of a sudden, and you know, even, and there were, I think at least 1 or 2 horses went out Hooper. So it's out there, and it's something they're watching carefully. But right now, things are kind of holding down, and most of it is because the water is not there, but they're on top of everything. I told them thanks for coming in at the last minute and helping out on that. I went over my head, I'm sorry, I didn't even think about that. Not too much, I guess, on the other agenda. The other thing was, I need your advice or at least direction. There was a lot of positive response back from the band and the 2 bands and the orchestra. And we've been using the cabin, which we appreciated very much. We'd like to keep that going, but we don't have a place. I didn't know what the policy is here. If we could still, we're trying to get this as an association and eventually it's running full time. If we could still use the cabin on Monday nights for rehearsal. And that's all I have. And that kind of falls into this special permit thing. So I don't know what your feelings are on that. So I just need guidance on that. So right now, we're kind of planning for the future, but a lot depends on where we are right now. I may pull back a little bit so we can develop and create the association.
What was the approval for us using the cabin for these
250,
last?
we're part of the 250. That was the reason. So this is a standalone volunteer group right now. And that once again opens up a can of worms here. So if you don't want to address the can of worms, then fine, tell me so right now, and that's all right. You know, I'm going to work through this.
So were we having funds coming out of American 250 going toward cabin expenses because of that?
I don't think so. I think it was just a volunteer. When I was in charge of it, there was nobody, you know, other than it was a calendar event. It was happening at some point.
So what would be the limitation on just calendaring it in?
There wouldn't be if the council gives staff direction to do that. All nonprofits are welcome to reserve the cabin at no cost as long as they provide proof of their 501c3. But I think to Grover's point that they're trying to become an association. But if the council is in agreement that they can continue, then staff just needs that direction so we can waive that fee and continue their
when I talked
reservations.
when I talked to Jill, once we have the association, then it can be paired underneath the umbrella if the council says so, as far as it being part of a volunteer organization that would be covered under the liability insurance of the city, as long as we're on city property. And that's kind of where I'm headed, but eventually I'd like it to be its own entity, its own 501c3. It's just going to take time to put it together. That's where we are.
Well, I don't know if I have a conflict of interest where I'm a member of the orchestra. So I don't know if I'm allowed to motion for that. Maybe we need someone else, but I would if I could.
So I'm just asking for direction at this point in time, not necessarily a nod, but give me a point of where we want to go. If this is not something we want to open up, fine, let's say it right now, and then I'll go in a different direction.
Well, you have to have 3 people, so if she takes her out and you're part of the team.
And I'm taking it out too, because
So
I
there's only
usually
2 people that can approve it.
Maybe we'll have to do it next month.
So we may have to work on it in September.
The only question I have is, how often do we have requests for Monday for the cabin?
Weekdays are probably
The least
the
utilized.
least, yeah, probably
Okay.
Monday even particularly.
November, December, you might have some Mondays.
Sure, during the
For
holiday.
sure. But
Mhm.
other than that, it's pretty light, I think.
I guess that'd be my only concern, I mean, because I think it's great to utilize the building, it's better to be used than just sit empty. So I think that's great. I just wonder when there may be times citizens want to pay to use it, how that would work on maybe the holiday season, something like that.
So I'm a part of the North Ogden Community Band, and we use North Ogden City's facilities, and we're, if there's any other events, we're subject to being booed, which is totally fine.
Yeah,
And
if you live with something like that.
we get a 1-week vacation if that happens.
So,
That would work.
okay, but that's something.
That's something to talk about.
That's something to talk about since I didn't vote on it. No dogs. Yeah, it's a hate to put it out.
Thank you for those. Anybody else?
My dad.
One thing I just want to bring to your attention, maybe I shouldn't bring it. The Utah chapter of APA will have their yearly conference in September, and it's on Wednesday and Thursday at the Davis Conference Center. And I think that's also a good place to learn and to be involved. And this could be have some commission, because the rate is for the 2 days, which include lunches, is $150 for 3 people. If there's 3 people interested, it's $150 for the 2 days.
What was the date again?
I have to look. Go to Utah American Planning Association, and the dates are on there. I think it's September. It's a Wednesday and a Thursday. I think it's like the second week in September. I'm just trying. I signed up for it. I just can't remember when it is.
Yeah, I think September 9th and 10th.
That's probably, yeah. If it's different, I'll let you know. But anyway, if the planning commissioners are interested, there's that rate. And I thought 3 people for $150. So, and it's a 2-day. They've got a lot of different topics that they talk about.
I take it you want to go.
Yeah, I kind of know why they go.
Okay. Anything else?
I just want to say thank you again to everyone that America took with you. I thought it was a lot of fun. It seemed like the people that came enjoyed and really wanted to stay. I talked to everyone involved, and the vendors loved it. The food trucks were like, "Oh, we would totally do this again." Meaning they were well supported, and it was just a fun night. Grover and Annette, they had a big portion of the work arranging the entertainment and the service. We wanted to keep it simple, and Annette, she took it one notch above simple. But it was awesome. So thanks.
And I think the flags all the way around the pond.
It was beautiful.
That was spectacular.
Okay. For all the tailors and the names on the flags.
That's right.
I really appreciate everybody's comments tonight. It's nice having you come prepared, and I can tell you're doing your homework, so that's good. That's all I have as far as my comments. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.